see the names. I can see. Yeah, the names are. All right. Good evening, Brattleboro. Today is April 5th, 2022. We are reconvening the Brattleboro Selectboard meeting after executive session. As we learned at 5:30, this meeting was properly warned. It's now 6:21, and I will hear a motion on the minutes.
Clerk, I would like to move that we accept the minutes
Can I get the dates?
from March 15th and March 21st, 2022.
We have a motion from the new clerk of the board to approve the minutes of March 15th and March 21st, 2022. Any discussion?
Not from me.
Hearing none.
Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right. The motion passes 5-0. All right. We move to chair remarks. Well, this is new and fun and exciting. I'm very excited to be chairing my first meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard. This is my third year on the board, and I'm sure that I will forget things and make mistakes. So I asked for my fellow board members' patience and Yoshi's patience as I sort of get my legs under me. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk about tonight is just as we move through the year, there are going to be some pretty contentious meetings I anticipate, because every year has them, where we have lots of public discussion and lots of participation from the board members. And those meetings will require some decisions on the chair's part for length of public participation, length of each comment, and when to cut off participation to allow for continued discussion of the board. I put a lot of thought before this meeting as to whether I would sort of spell out exactly what I was planning right now, and I don't think that makes sense. I think what I'm planning on doing is when we have a meeting that's coming up based on public participation before the meeting, that I anticipate being pretty heavy and having a lot of participation. At the beginning of that meeting, I will make sure to lay out what the plan is for length of comments, and if I'm going to try to retain it to a certain amount of time or something like that, just to keep the meeting moving and to fulfill the moderator role that the chair has for the select board. So with that, I will hand it over to the town manager if he's got any comments. Yoshi.
I have no comments.
No comments. All right. Any select board comments or committee reports?
It's just a comment to congratulate you and Daniel and Jess in their new positions here on the board.
Thank you very much.
You have our faith. I'm pretty sure I speak for the board to say that you have our faith in leadership.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Anything else? No. Jess? No? Great. So now we have public participation. So I'll look to the screen. Are there any hands there? No. And then I'll look to the room. Not seeing any at all. Hello. All right. Move on to the consent agenda. Yoshi, do you want to give a very brief on just what we have on the consent agenda?
Yeah, you have 4 items today. You have the VTrans financial plan, the VTrans certificate of compliance, the cardiac monitor replacement authorized purchase, and the police highway safety grant, except and appropriate.
I'll say they seem non-controversial and in order by my estimation.
Order.
In order. All right. Daniel,
Got a motion?
a motion.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion from Vice Chair Quip to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? None? All right, all those in favor, please indicate with an eye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Great. All right. I'll say a motion.
I would like to move that we convene as liquor commissioners.
All right, just as a move that we convene as liquor commissioners. All those in favor, please indicate with an eye.
Aye.
All right, 5-0. We are now liquor commissioners and is Hillary on or?
Hillary's not on. I'd be happy to present. the
Excellent,
issue this
Patrick.
evening. Yeah, excellent. So the application before you tonight is for the Porch 2. And the Porch 2 is the catering business associated with the Porch, which has their business up on Putney Road. What they're seeking from you this evening is a first class and a seasonal third class liquor license, which would allow them to serve beer and wine and hard alcohol for half the year when they cater events with their delicious sandwiches and so on. They have no outstanding taxes or fees owed to the town. Their application has been reviewed by the police and fire and town manager's office, and we see no reason not to grant the permit. And I will let you know that Gretchen Hardy, a representative from the business, is in the Zoom meeting.
Great. Well, I'll open up to the board first. Any,
I think it's an excellent idea. I think they're a great business and they should be able to expand in this way.
I would agree.
great. It looks like we have Gretchen on if she wants to speak for a moment on it. Hello.
Hi, how are you all today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for taking the time to include me. This is fantastic. Yeah, I think there's not much to say. We applied before you all about 2 years ago, then the pandemic happened and everything was paused out. So it's basically all the same information as before. And unfortunately, this is not for liquor at the restaurant. It'll just be for private events.
Great.
Any other questions or concerns or anything I can answer that would be helpful?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Great. Awesome.
Take a motion.
I move that we approve a first-class liquor license and a seasonal third-class liquor license to the Porch 2 located at 648 Putney Road.
All right, Liz has made a motion to approve a first-class liquor license and a seasonal third-class liquor license to the Porch 2 located at 648 Putney Road. All those in favor? Indicate with an eye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. All right. Thank you very much, Gretchen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a great evening.
Yeah, look back.
Yeah, I know.
Do it really quick. Look at the
You look at the
Yeah.
camera.
Oh, yeah.
I
And
was
so,
too, girl.
so we got the TV a little further back.
It works much
It
better.
looks, you guys liking it like that?
Got my hair looking good.
And I can almost see all the names on there. Okay.
The gray end of the table.
So moving on, I'll take a motion there, Jess.
I know which one.
I forgot the word
I
again.
move to adjourn as liquor commissioner.
I was gonna say.
Excellent.
That didn't sound right.
Liz has made a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thanks,
Great.
Liz.
Thank you very much, Liz. All right, we'll move on to unfinished business. Patrick, you want to take it away?
Yes, sir. So this evening, the board is asked to conduct a second reading and to adopt the proposed changes to the Brattleboro Code of Ordinance, Chapter 1.5, Section 16-17, which is the exemptions. You'll recall, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago and conducted a first reading. Tonight would be the second reading and an opportunity to vote on the proposed changes. In summary, the changes before you are that we would eliminate the current exemption for town staff to hold an event that involved alcohol on public property. That would be removed. And it would be replaced with the opportunity for events to serve alcohol on public property, as long as they were, one, approved to hold a public event by the town manager's office, and two, had a catering and or special event permission from the Department of Liquor Control. So this would enable, for example, the Porch 2 to potentially coordinate with somebody like Gallery Walk and serve drinks in a public space, as long as it was conducted on an event that was approved by the town manager's office and they had their DLC permit. That was just an example.
Great. Thank you very much, Patrick. So any discussion?
I think it's an idea whose time has come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100 years after Prohibition.
I like how this is definitely taking one of the elements of the pandemic of sort of having takeaway alcohol, and while we're not condoning that, we're expanding a little bit how the town interacts with having alcohol on our public spaces. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I hope that we see other ordinance changes that incorporate lessons that we've taken from the multiple years of pandemic that we've all lived through.
I think that's well said. It also is part of our ongoing efforts to make our ordinances slightly less bad.
Yeah.
You know, because we have some outdated ones. Is the not throwing rocks still in there? I'm just curious. No, it's not germane. So there is an ordinance, I believe, about not throwing rocks.
Wow.
So we can
It's
address
not,
that.
You know, that could very well come in handy.
Certainly in glass houses. If nothing else.
You mean for the board? Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just check the
Yeah.
public here. Doesn't look like any comments. Oh.
Correct us if we're wrong.
So they have not raised their hand, but they've brought up their camera. Would you like to hear from what looks to be Patricia Howell?
Yeah,
I
let's,
think there's ski jump people.
there's ski jump people. Oh, let's just double check.
Unless they have a comment on this
Yeah,
matter.
she just said.
She just said ski jump.
Yeah.
All right.
I can read lips, Patricia.
Yeah. All right. So she said, all right.
So we'll stand
We're
by.
almost there.
Stand by.
All right. So no one else from the public. So in that case,
Would you like a motion?
yes, please.
I move to adopt the ordinance change for chapter 1.5, article 2, section 16 to 17, regarding exceptions to the ordinance regulating the consumption of alcoholic beverages on town and school property.
Great. Jess has made a motion to adopt the ordinance change for chapter 1.5, article 2, section 16 and 17 regarding exceptions to the ordinance regulating the consumption of alcohol beverages on town and school property. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
How can I get?
Damn.
Yeah, and we knew what to do without you telling us. So that's great.
Yes. Learning. Thank you. All right, so move on to new business. I think the first article Yoshi's gonna take away.
Yes, this first article is to discuss the permanent placement of the Harris Hill ski jump sculpture, which is out on Main Street in front of Town Hall. The agreement would be for you to discuss if you're approved by the board, the town would enter into agreement and negotiate agreement with the Harris Hill Association for the year-round installation and maintenance of that sculpture.
Great. So we have some representatives to discuss this, and I think it may behoove the board to listen to them first. Unless, Liz, did you have something you wanted to?
Well, I just, so what's before us is to maintain that structure. There are additional accoutrements associated with it that I assume will be removed seasonally.
we should probably hear.
Let's hear what they have to say, and then I think we can get an answer to that question. So, Patricia, do you want to just give us the names of you and your counterpart there, and just where you live, and then please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you for putting this on your agenda today. I'm Pat Howell, and I'm president of the board of the Harris Hill Ski Jump. And I have here with me tonight Mel Martin, who designed and installed the sculpture. And he can answer probably anything you want to know about it. We're thrilled that you're taking this up as an option. We've had such incredible feedback, positive feedback on the sculpture. And so we're anxious to answer your questions and see where we might go from here.
Thank you very much, Pat and Mel. I think we could start with that. Liz, if you want to post it.
So there's the sculpture, which is lovely, and everyone really appreciates it. But there's like a solar panel and some other equipment on the ground. And I'm wondering whether that could be stored by you safely until December 1st rolls around every year. Is that a possibility?
Or will it be lit all year? I guess it's the first.
I'd say that would probably be another question that would go along with that.
Right, definitely. And we can talk about that.
The idea, the concept was, especially if we can have this as a year-round sculpture, is to use the lights in season. So to use the lights to highlight the event, if you will, and take advantage of them in the, shall we say, the dark of winter, the dark of nights. The battery box that you see there now, I would move to the post which holds the solar panels. So that one feature would then be eliminated. It would be more attractive, if you will. In the best of worlds, I would prefer to leave the panels there, but also see, because there's not just flowers, obviously, on that island, there's shrubbery. And I'm wondering if we couldn't encourage, if you will, by the way the shrubbery is cut, to encourage it to enclose that the panels a little more to isolate them visually. They can be removed. There's no question about that. But in the ideal world, I'd kind of like to try to see if we couldn't mask them, if you will, and move the battery box to that, so that becomes invisible. That would be, you wouldn't see that at all. But that would be our preference. Again, we will, you folks are the deciders, so we will, at your decision, we can do whatever you want.
Well, my concern was more for the safety of the equipment as well. Not only might somebody stumble over it, but to keep its integrity when it's not in use.
There's not much that could happen to the equipment itself, in that, again, solar panels can be up year-round anywhere. There is no pedestrian traffic on the island, so there's nothing there wouldn't be nothing for them to run into because they're not walking there. And again, just to say, the battery box itself being a part of the actual solar panel post makes it, I was there today checking it out, it would be invisible because it sits behind the panel. So again, that 2 cents for your consideration.
All right, Daniel.
I'll look at this camera. So it looks like I'm looking at you, but I'm really looking over here because that's where you are. I wonder if you could kind of speak to why you think this should be there year round. I think that there was a very clear reason for it being placed there this winter. But if you could make a case as to why this should stay there year round. I think as much as anything, I'll defer to, and I know Yoshi has some letters, it's the people, the business people, some people in the, many people in the community, quite frankly, I've lost track, who have approached us, and I say us, meaning Pat has received some individuals too, who say,
Why take it down?
yeah, I hope it's not coming down, or why take it down? It's such beautiful, or comments like, it's more, I guess, I forget the exact words, but it's more substantial, it's more artful than I would have thought it was, having looked at the diagram, a year ago. So these comments, I think, speak to that and answer that better than I can, because it's just the community saying they feel that the nature of it and how it aligns with the historical history of Harris Hill and Brattleboro, that would be the primary reason for having it up.
We've always, we've got signs in Brattleboro that feature a ski jumper that say, "Welcome to Brattleboro," wooden signs. And the town is such a big, the ski jump is such a big part of the town's culture at this point, and for the last 100 years, if I may. And so it was the feedback that we've gotten that made us rethink. Instead of the 3 months, why don't we ask the select board if we could leave it, because it's very substantial. There's not much that can happen to it, and it is attractive. Why not ask the select board if we could leave it up and just light it in the wintertime, that at a time when it says, "Oh, it's ski jump time again. Brattleboro is jumping in February." It's sort of like a reminder that it's, plus to take it down, even though it was designed intricately to be taken down and stored. It's a lot of work to do so.
Yeah, needless to say, it's a significant project that would require us to bring in
A flatbed and a forklift.
And to interrupt traffic twice a year. And I think, again, it was the feedback that we got from the community that was just kind of overwhelming. People walking up and saying this, and like, wow, maybe we should consider this and ask you.
Great. Daniel?
Yeah, I just want to follow on. So I appreciate that explanation. Art is a very subjective thing, and what's some person's taste may not be another's. I think that there was very good reason for it to be up there temporarily this particular year. And I think that during the winter time, it could be a nice sort of addition to the streetscape. And, I have my own particular opinion about the artistic merits of the piece. I honestly don't feel like my one artistic opinion is really the thing that matters most. So I asked a lot of people in the community what they thought about it.
Yes.
And people are really, there's a lot of people that are like, I love it. And then there's a lot of people that think that it should only be placed there seasonally. One of the reasons that folks thought seasonal made more sense is that, if something's there year round, it's just, you sort of take it for granted, and it arriving there in, December would be kind of novel and interesting. It's not something that I feel like I need to, there's only one outcome here that I'll accept, but I just want to propose that I think a seasonal use would be more interesting, would be more appropriate given the nature of the event that the sculpture represents. And so I just want to let my fellow board members know that that is something I would consider as a compromise.
Tim?
Well, I'm fully sold on keeping it year round. And actually if I had my druthers, I would prefer that the lighting would be the seasonal aspect of the sculpture myself. I think it's a little odd to leave the panels and the box there, to be honest, because I think they'll stay safer and the battery can be exercised somewhere else, but it's not going to stop me from supporting art, because I'm all in favor of more art in Brattleboro, not less art. And I feel like taking it away is less art for this town. So I think it's something to be proud of. Harris Hill is something to be proud of year round. And then the lights can come on when the darkness descends. That's my take on it.
Jess?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Tim in a lot of ways. I'm a big fan of art, big fan of public art. I think Brattleboro needs way more public art. And having this piece is great. What I worry about is that the piece was designed to be lit in its full existing form as the designer meant it to be. It was meant to be lit and beautiful, and it is beautiful when it's all lit up at night. And I worry that if it's only lit seasonally, then it's just like one of those Christmas decorations that sits out on the lawn all year. Not to be crass or insulting, if it's not going to be living there in the space in its fully intended form, I don't think that we should just let it sit there.
So I think just to because I'm curious, if we were to light it year round, would you be in support of having it there year round?
Yeah, I think it would be beautiful. I think the Harris Hill ski jump is such an important part of Brattleboro culture and history, and I think that it's really relevant as a piece of public art.
Yeah. Daniel?
Yeah, I just want to kind of go back on that. My feelings about this sculpture are not feelings about the Harris Hill ski jump. They're really feelings about this particular sculpture. And I could imagine many other sculptures that would commemorate the Harris Hill ski jump's centenary. You know, and like, as I said before, like my aesthetic judgment on something, I don't know, I feel like it's weird that that would be a thing that's part of this decision. But I think that seasonal is relevant and would be in keeping with the agreement that we've already made. You know, having a sculpture up that represents an event that is not happening anytime soon. And I think if it's going to be there year round, I want it lit up, because the lit up at the appropriate time, not in the middle of the day, right? But I think like one of the merits of the sculpture is that at night, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
In the daytime, I'm less enchanted.
I'm only laughing because we're going to need 3 motions.
Yeah.
I think it should be seasonal, whichever way you want to do that. If if you want to leave it there and have it lit December 1st to February 1st or whatever it is, that's one option. If you want to take it away and bring it back, that's another option. But the third option is having it lit all the time, which I just think is weird. And takes away from the spontaneity of the dark season.
Lighting aside, if we could just separate the lighting, because it's clearly the most controversial aspect tonight. Lighting aside, I think it's odd to point to this particular piece of art and say that it's not seasonally appropriate, even though it was sold to us as a season. That's okay. It exists now as a piece of art, right? Once art is out in the world, it's no longer yours, of course, as an artist. But anyway, but my point is that we certainly wouldn't argue that the sign right near there, near the library that has Harris Hill ski jumper right on it, we don't take that down because it's not seasonally appropriate. We have it on our recycling containers. We don't worry about that not being seasonally appropriate. So if we have this symbol in multiple places, why are suddenly we concerned about seasonal appropriateness when this is actually a symbol to be proud of for the town of Brattleboro? So,
Well, couple of reasons.
I think Jess had her hand up first.
Oh, no, I didn't.
You did not? Okay, please go ahead.
First, what we were told. Once in 100 years, seasonally, is what we had agreed to previously. Second, it's akin to a Christmas light. And so therefore, when the days get shorter, it's more pronounced to have the lights lit seasonally. And it's also a function of the event. So it's commemorating the event, getting ready for the event, the advent of the event, so to speak. But it should be lit only seasonally, and then its utility in the rest of the year is certainly questionable.
I guess then I would pose the question, why keep it up then?
There you go.
That's a
At
good
all.
question.
That's a good question.
So I have a question then to Pat and Mel. So if the board were to fall on the side of asking or having it removed seasonally and then put back up, would the cost or effort it takes to install it prevent you all from putting it back up each year?
I would say it would be an impediment more than anything. It would be it's a sizable task. It's a sizable project twice a year. It can be done.
I watched them do it, Did anyone else watch them do it?
I remembered, I did have my hand up,
You did
and this
have
is
Sorry,
exactly
Jess. I
why.
jumped in.
Yes.
Which is, if it is seasonal, is there a way that the town could support the installation and removal of it? Because it's a piece of art that we appreciate, that we like, that is part of our town culture, that celebrates our town culture.
I think that would be a question to either Yoshi or Patrick.
I think it'd be part of the budget process.
Be part of the what?
A budget process, so we have to include that as part of next year's. Right?
Yeah, I honestly, it's kind of a curveball question, didn't anticipate. I think the question would be, what kind of help do they need and what kind of help could we offer?
This is something that we do have equipment, so that's something we could consider.
Okay. I guess I'll speak on this for a moment.
Please.
First, I want to thank the board for providing a really great first article thing
Yeah,
to
we should
discuss.
give you
that.
something
Yeah, it's
easy.
great. Yeah. I'm glad it's generated so much discussion already. So I think that the seasonal argument, while on its face has merit, loses a lot of value when you consider that the town has adopted the ski jumper as a emblem of the town in multiple areas, including, as Tim brought up, the bags, the signs, and things like that. So, but as I hear from the board, that potentially there isn't support, and one only supports it if it's lit all the time, and one only supports it if it's lit half the time. I'm seeing a little bit of a difficulty here on where we're going to land. So,
Well, I think it's appropriate for the ski jump to wonder how it's going to land.
yeah, there we go.
Oh.
So I guess if we want to just see if we maybe take down Pat and Mel for a moment there, Patrick, and see if there's any other public comments. Sure.
Or leave them up.
Or we can leave them up, and I just want to see if there's anybody.
Nobody at this time.
Perhaps no one anticipated. this
No one
type of,
anticipated quite a
discussion.
so.
Robust discussion.
Although it was
Front
a
page of
big,
the paper.
Front page of the paper. Yeah. All right. Well, is there further discussion?
Let me just,
maybe
Let's
kick these.
they've asked for it to be seasonal.
originally.
Well, no, I mean, tonight, they asked for it to be season, up all the time and lit seasonally.
Oh, lit.
Is that the-
Oh,
Yes.
Correct, that's
Yes.
what they.
yes.
It's right here in black and white. Up all the time, but lit seasonally.
Mhm.
I'm okay with that.
Is that the motion we want to vote
So
on?
you have two things to discuss, right? I think first you should discuss if you want to have this permanent or seasonal. I think that's the first discussion, on what you want to do. And then second would be the lighting, how you would like to proceed with lighting.
Isn't it the
Separate
same?
two. In this case, it would be seasonal, but if you don't want to go with their suggestion and make it permanent lighting the entire year, after you've decided if you want to have it permanent or seasonal.
Well, we
I
could
think
do
that's
it either way.
Correct.
Sounds like we have a 3-2 for
For
seasonal. seasonally lit and permanent placement.
I don't know if you do.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important that you.
Because I didn't care. I said that I just want to see the art remain, but
Well, why don't you make that motion?
I actually don't want,
oh, well, if you're
Ian.
dropping out.
I was just
we
not
don't have
really,
to,
I
so
wasn't really anticipating this. So yeah, I guess.
I'll let you
yeah,
negotiate. Or somebody could just make a motion.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
just want to make a
So
motion.
I would move that the sculpture be placed there between the months of December and March annually and is lit at night during that period of time,
Okay,
which is the
so,
original agreement we had.
okay,
Just a suggestion. As a courtesy, would we like to have our guests be able to say anything else before?
I
the
was
vote?
about to say, I think before we take the vote, if you guys want to, if Pat and Mel want to speak at all to this again before the board votes, we'd be happy to hear from you. Patrick, you just got to let him unmute.
They say that.
I've already said what I think I represent the ski jump, and I think you have said, some of you have already said it, and I have said it as well. We will certainly honor whatever you decide. We were hoping that you would, yes, that was our original agreement, to have it up for 3 months out of the year, and we will certainly honor that. We were asking for, now that you've seen it, now that the community, it's been part of the community, and as people drive by and they say, from out of town even, and say, oh my gosh, what's that? And it's part of what Brattleboro is. That would be my argument. It's part of the brand of Brattleboro. And so I don't understand fully why it would, why it needs to come down. That said, we will totally honor your decision, whatever it is.
And just to one, well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, please.
It's all you.
Mel, go ahead.
To the question of lighting it seasonally, that is not a problem. I mean, that's, as I say, we move the battery box over, we enclose with the growth of the shrubbery, the panels become even more, less seen and visible. And the timer can be set, as I've been doing it, to match the season. So if you want it to be lit year round, that's not a problem. We don't see it as a Christmas ornament. We see it as something far more substantial, obviously. And I think the fact that maybe to the point that it be lit all year would help support that. And so that works for us, absolutely, if that's what you'd like.
All right, thank you both very much.
Sure.
All right, is there any?
Offer a friendly amendment to Daniel's motion?
Yeah, so the way this works is a friendly amendment, we'd vote on the amendment, that has to pass or fail, and then we could vote on the whether either way. So let's hear the friendly amendment.
I would ask that the town manager and the assistant town manager work with town staff to see if we could assist these people in removal and set up every year.
Okay, any discussion on the amendment? Okay, so let's vote.
I just want to hear the motion again.
Yeah, Liz, you want to repeat it one more time for the?
Oh, no, the full motion, just if whatever we're,
The original.
or
one.
you want us to vote on the.
I believe that
friendly
I
amendment?
believe that would be how we would do it. You'd vote on the friendly amendment to decide whether we're going to vote on it altogether, or it votes down the friendly amendment, and then we just go back to Daniel's original motion. So just hear the friendly amendment again.
That the town manager and staff discuss how they might be able to help the ski jump, the Harris Hill people, with the removal and the replacement of the sign seasonally.
Excellent. Thank you, Liz. All right, if there's no discussion on the friendly amendment, all those in favor of Liz's friendly amendment to Daniel's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that's 5-0. Okay, so we move back to Daniel's motion, which is to have the ski jump sculpture on Main Street be up from the months of December to March, and it be lit for the evening portions of the entirety of that time, with the friendly amendment that the town manager and assistant town manager work with the individuals responsible for the installation and taking down of the sculpture to aid them in that process if we can. So any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. So all those opposed?
Nay.
All right. So the motion passes 4-1. And thank you, Pat and Mel, very much for your time. And we will move on. All right. 47 Flat Street. Patrick?
Sure. So, good evening, everybody. So tonight, the board is asked to increase the value of the loan that we're providing to the project at 47 Flat Street. And I'll take a few minutes and just sort of run through how we got there and how we got to this moment in time, because we've been talking about this project now since 2020. It was actually in the fall of 2020 that the town was approached by Community Development Support, Inc., who was working with M&S Development, and they were looking to rehabilitate the 47 Flat Street property, which is also known as the Sinnell property. It's down on Flat Street, and it has sat there empty for more than a decade. Was damaged slightly, I believe, in Irene, if I recall correctly. So the town was approached to see if we would support a community development block grant application. We did. The board voted to support that application. It was for $492,920. And at the time, the board contributed $150,000 loan to the project, with the terms being 30 years at 1% interest in the first 12 months being interest-free. The town received notification fairly quickly from VCDP that the grant was preliminarily approved. And when they provide that preliminary approval, they typically assign a couple of conditions. The project's got to get all of its permits. The project's got to secure all of its other funding, and so on. 2020 was a tough year. 2021 was even tougher. The project had a challenging historic preservation review, not at the local level or at the state level, but at the national level. That ended up removing the 5th floor from the project and with it 4 of the units. Happily, though, we are able to report that 100% of the remaining 15 new units of housing for our downtown will be specifically affordable under HUD guidelines, and they'll be made available to households between 40 and 80% of area mean income. In addition to the somewhat challenging historic preservation review, you'll recognize that there's been a good deal of inflationary pressure on the cost of construction, along with supply chain issues. Both of these factors have resulted in significantly higher construction costs than originally understood or anticipated. What this has meant is that it's been kind of difficult to meet those award conditions. The project is now a good deal greater than $2 million more than it was originally conceived. And in fact, one of the things that was pointed out to me recently is that the budget I included in my memo is actually a couple of weeks old. There are a couple of $100,000 of additional costs in this project. Thankfully, those additional costs have been made up by several of the funding sources that are identified here. What this means is that for the first time since the fall of 2020, we have ourselves a ball game on one condition: that the town increase its loan from $150,000 to $300,000. That's the ask tonight. If that's approved, we anticipate a financial closing on April 19th and construction quickly to follow. For those of you who pay attention to the town's revolving loan fund, there is a
Should be
current
all.
available balance of $325,278. And so this would cut that by $150,000. But this is a worthwhile project that I think its day has come. And if there are any questions, I could take any questions. Also, Sky Morse is here from M&S Development if we had any questions for him.
I saw Jess actually first.
No, I was just
Oh, you
waving.
keep doing that.
Hi.
Liz.
My question was, and I think you alluded to it, Patrick, but have all the other funders been asked and have
Yes.
they increased their funding?
That I'm not sure that all of them have, but enough of them have to make up the difference. We are a funded project with this decision.
Thank you.
Daniel.
Great. I just note for the record that like we have a housing plan, well, housing study that has numerous steps in it, one of which is to create 500 units immediately. This is 15 of them. You know, that's a big challenge, but like we got to knock that number down whichever way we can. So I say, yes, we fund this project to this increased amount. And that is perfect use for that kind of money because that revolving loan fund money is for economic development and housing.
Maybe we should have a sign that says 500 housing units and then.
Honestly, I
Okay.
imagine.
Oh my
Or like the thermometer that's
The opposite.
oh,
Yeah,
like
we'll bring it
because it's
down.
an
Yeah.
emergency. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jess.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say this is from the revolving loan fund, so it will come back to us eventually. We do have other sources that are available for funding this sort of development, don't we?
Other sources within the town?
Within the town.
I think one way to answer that might be that there are some sources available to the town that could be used to add value to this revolving loan fund so that there is a higher balance, right? So, you know,
That'll be a future discussion.
Yeah.
but there are some ways to increase the size of this revolving loan fund in the short term that I know Yoshi would like to have a more complete conversation about.
So this will leave us, sorry, I was just, is it?
Yeah.
At about just north of 175,000 remaining in that fund. The purpose of this fund is for economic development and or housing. So I was especially frustrated to hear about the loss of a floor. I really think we could have used that extra floor, but I don't want to go into that and just focus on the positive of actually seeing this through and building more housing of all types. And this is certainly a type that can be appreciated by those who need it. So I'm going to support it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll speak on two things. Oh, well, first I just wanted to appreciate Patrick's clarification. And I kind of had a terrifying moment where I realized I probably don't get newbie questions anymore.
Yes,
Yeah.
the chair
So-
usually does.
Usually does not. So, oh boy. So I think a casual reader of this would see $300,000 coming from the revolving loan fund and the available balance at the end being 325 currently. They would think maybe there would only be 25 left. But how we
The
account
first 150 has already been reserved.
it's already been preserved. So
Yep.
even though it actually hasn't left, it's been pushed away.
This is the available balance
Yeah.
and not the balance.
Absolutely. Okay.
So there's a much larger balance in the fund, some of which is reserved for various different things.
How long can funds in the revolving loan fund be preserved before they are expended?
Probably up to us.
That's a question I can't answer.
It's not really relevant.
I'm not sure if there's a particular accounting timeframe, you can only reserve something for a year or something. I could look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, no worries.
But this 150,000 has been sort of set aside and preserved for this project since the fall of 2020.
And so the 300,000 in total will leave the revolving loan fund on April 19th.
Not exactly. What will happen is there'll be a financial close on the 19th that will provide the town with the ability to say to the state, they have secured their financing. They will issue a grant award to the town of Brattleboro. I'll bring that back to you and we'll do an accept and appropriate for the grant award. We'll provide a sub-grant agreement to our partner at Community Development Support, Inc. And upon execution of the sub-grant, we'll provide the loan.
Excellent. I was going to, the other thing I wanted to bring up was just, we have Sky here. So the town's going to give you sounds like another $150,000. So I was wondering if maybe you could come up to the podium and maybe just speak for a moment to what the in whole $300,000 that the town's giving, what the project's going to look like, what those 15 units are going to look like. I'm sure the public is really interested because everybody is thinking about housing. So.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Loaning. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a good, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for your continued support and for the opportunity to speak. This project, as Patrick alluded to, is a long time in the making. When we lost the 5th floor, that was the 3rd panic attack that I had in this process. And there have been several since then. The 15 units will be, as Patrick said, available to families making between $20,000 and $40,000 roughly, and it will escalate as our incomes increase, which I know they will in the coming years, to make sure that folks don't necessarily earn out of this housing. The units, I mean, they're going to be really nice. It's going to be in this beautiful historic building. If you go down there and you can see the mountain from the big historic windows, which will all be preserved. The ground floor will actually be a co-working space, open office space, 7 private offices, conference room, open workspace, all really nice. The National Park Services required that we do not insulate that space in all the wisdom. So we'll have exposed brick, which will be very nice. And that'll be the most public space. And so we hope that we'll really preserve the historic feel of that building, which was originally a grocery warehouse built in 1900 by the DeWitt family. So yeah, really, really fantastic. For the residents, we'll have all electric heat. There will be solar panels on the roof that'll offset a good portion of that. That means there will be heating and cooling, so air conditioning in summer, air source heat pumps in every unit. I mean, these are going to be nice. For the folks who have been in the Brooks House and seen those units, that was our project. Those are nice units. These will also be nice units.
Wow, thank you very much.
Could you just explain what you said about the National Park Service doesn't want the downstairs to be insulated or the whole building to be?
They have certain goals around historic preservation and preserving the historic aesthetic. And given that there isn't really an historic traffic pattern, if you will, inside the hallways and the doorways and things that you might usually see in a historic building, this was just an empty warehouse. And when we said, well, we're gonna insulate the whole thing, and then we're gonna divide it up into housing units, and they said, well, what's gonna be left that's historic that we will see? And so we agreed that we would leave the ceilings exposed. So you'll see the historic wood ceilings. We'll put in new floors because they're warehouse floors. You'll see the outside, and they wanted more. So we agreed that we would not insulate the downstairs so that you'll see brick, and we'll have hydronic heating loop as well as air source heat pumps to counteract that. The building science is really actually kind of mixed right now as to whether 3 wide thick brick is in fact enough as it is. So we'll be sufficiently warm in the winter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Sky while we have him up here?
No, just thanks for the info and attending.
Yeah.
Perseverance.
Best of luck. Yeah, good luck.
Thank you so much. This means a lot.
Thank you.
You want a motion?
Yeah, I think I moved
It's a big,
Yeah, it's a big one.
Jessica.
I'll
you
make
seem
a
excited to make
motion.
it.
Oh, made that last one.
Are we ready?
I think we are. Yeah.
Okay. I move to increase the loan amount from the town's revolving loan fund from $150,000 to $300,000 to Community Development Support Incorporated, contingent upon the town executing a grant agreement with VCDP for the 47 Flat Street project with the following terms: a 30-year note at 1% interest with interest-only payments for the first 12 months.
All right, Jess has made a motion to increase the loan amount from the town's revolving loan fund from $150,000 to $300,000 to the Community Development Support Incorporated, contingent upon the town executing a grant agreement with VCDP for the 47 Flat Street project with the following terms: a 30-year note at 1% interest with interest-only payments for the first 12 months. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right.
Get it going.
Yes.
What time do we?
It is 7:15. So,
You know, we may have had an interruption in the Zoom link. Just want to maybe, I want to acknowledge that.
I was going to wait. I was going to
Let's wait
check
for
with
Patrick.
Patrick to see what the
Sorry.
situation was.
I think it's back now, but
Yeah, it seemed like we lost Zoom for
Audio is much different than before.
Okay, BCTV.
and they're all.
So where did everybody go?
Patrick just rushed out of the room, which
Yeah.
suggests that they are investigating. Maybe we should pause and take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patrick, would it be helpful if we paused for a 5-minute break to?
Forgive me. Is it working? Is it fun?
somebody was
I
saying.
believe it's working.
Somebody was saying in the chat.
We did lose internet for,
During Sky's.
a short period of time.
Yeah. So
There's a
just
message in the chat about the audio quality.
And I noticed Ray was not interpreting just
Ray is
then when
not
you were
interpreting, right.
speaking.
Yeah, she's not interpreting.
Yeah. She can't hear.
Yeah.
Let. You can't
There
hear
you go.
Thank you.
There we go.
Can you hear us?
oh, we can't hear them.
Ray,
Oh.
the interpreter, can you hear us?
She's trying to talk.
Yeah, just curious if anyone can hear us. Ray, can you hear us?
Says there's an echo.
I'm here.
Okay, so why don't we break? We're having audio difficulties. So let's take a 5-minute recess now to figure out these issues, and we'll resume. You did?
Is it?
Just now.
Can we try to hear Ray again then?
Ray, can you say something? Ray, the interpreter?
Ray is
Or-
speaking, but it's
Let's
very
see.
low.
Maybe Chuck here.
Uh,
Can you say something, Chuck? Chuck?
Yeah, just give me a second.
Oh, hey.
Fine.
Okay.
You can hear us?
Yep, you are a little bit muffled from before, but not to a point where I can't understand you.
Okay. In that case, I think we'll just keep going then.
Gotcha.
All right.
Okay.
So. All right, board members. So this is now all me to start us out. So every year, the Brattleboro Selectboard discusses its goals for the year. We in the agenda setting meeting felt that it may be a good way to move forward with Yoshi as our town manager to sort of start the discussion anew. Obviously, using the work of our previous years and the goals that we had established then, and we shouldn't ignore those, nor should we, not incorporate them into what our goals are for this year. But we felt that a new document, a new work product that the board creates tonight with Yoshi will help to give him guidance, give town staff guidance, and we just thought that it would be a great way to move forward. So obviously there are lots and lots and lots of things that we want to work on. So I thought that we would utilize the kind of headers that were presented that we used in our previous year's goals. So COVID, governance, community safety, those kind of things to guide our discussion, but that we would move from one to the next and talk about what we want to incorporate within each of those. And then as the conversation continues, if a board member has a particular thing that they want to talk about that doesn't fall within one of those headings, we will simply generate a new one to incorporate it so that it's part of the new goals. Now, I think the one thing I want to just remind my fellow board members of is what is warned for tonight is the goals of the board. So we don't want to get into specifics of opinions of like how we would vote on something or where we want to take something, because that's not what we're discussing. We're talking big picture here. And that's also going to really help Yoshi. So we don't want to get too far in the weeds, both for the open meeting law, but also because it's just not going to be helpful to Yoshi and town staff. So with that in mind, I think I would just start with actually first, anybody having comments on that as a way to sort of take that? I see Liz first.
I like that idea. But when we get to housing, I'd like it to be planning and housing.
So that would be a perfect thing to bring up when we get there. And Tim?
I was just going to say, since someone wisely put initial discussion.
Oh, thank you. Can I speak to that? Yes, that's actually an excellent point. Thank you very much, Tim. So the idea is we will put a bunch out into the air tonight. Yoshi's going to be listening, taking good notes. I'm going to be taking notes, and Yoshi's going and town staff are going to take what we've said and with town staff create essentially a new working document that will come back to the board for additional discussion at our next meeting. If anything feels like it was sort of taken in a different light than we had discussed, then we can modify it. And then hopefully with that second discussion, we can ratify the select board goals at that meeting. Daniel.
Yes, thanks. No, I think the process that you've laid out thus far is good. And I think that it's important to note for the public that, I don't know how to say this without being condescending. So like the select board,
or the
well, I don't know. The select board has a role within town government, which is policy setting. And the town manager's office and the town staff work to bring about the day-to-day lived expression of that policy setting, right? So like, I think when we're creating these goals, it's like they really are at the kind of goal level, right? Like we're not dictating like how town operations should run every day, because that is the town manager's office's job. And so I think, it's important to remember like what our role in things is and what town manager's office is.
I really appreciate that, Daniel. I think that's really important for all five of us to keep in mind as we move through the discussion. Before we get into it, I just want to turn to Yoshi for a moment. And is there anything you want to add before the board gets into this, as far as how to be thinking or any other points that you want to make?
Yeah, I think that you laid out exactly how we discussed how this is a good process for this board to be able to collaborate. I know in the past, the staff had put together, so we sort of skipped the first step and it put together and then reviewed. And this allows us to have more of a working document. I do appreciate that you're going with the existing structure, so that provides some guidance on where you're going to be going. But I do, again, I think that's Patrick and I are positioned and to remind you as you're moving forward to not to keep things too broad, but also not things too narrow, right? Because again, if it's too broad, then it's going to be difficult for us to interpret it. But if it's too narrow, it limits our ability to be able to implement what you're asking us to do. So that's again, what we're just asking.
Great.
We'll try to ask questions. I'll limit to the questions. Mostly this is about us listening to what you're interested in, trying to put it together, and then more interpretation we'll have next time when we sit down and do this.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I think I just want to acknowledge that this is going to be a little bit messier than maybe years past because we're going to just do this all now. I think it's good. I think it's going to help us really focus us this year. We have a lot to accomplish and I'm very excited about it. So with that said, I say we move to COVID/ARPA is what I would, how I would categorize the first category if
Oh, I like that.
people are acceptable to that.
Yeah, I just make a comment that
Tim,
this is pre-comment.
pre-comment.
Okay.
I like,
I just wanted to say that no one should take the order in which these are listed as some sort of priority order. Because
Good point.
that also puts
yeah, I
us
would,
into an argument mode when we don't need to have an argument. about
Right.
this
I-
stuff right now.
yeah, I think I chose to just discuss it in the order of the document simply for the
Yeah.
ease of the board members. to
Just pointing it out to
navigate their
anybody
notes.
watching,
Yeah.
you know, just.
And I will say that the public is welcome to comment during this portion, and they should feel free to. And I will keep an eye if anyone has their hand raised during the meeting, because we got no public participation in person here today. So with that, Daniel, you had your hand up.
Yes, COVID/ARPA. I mean, I guess, so, COVID recovery was the heading for the previous one. The ARPA funds, which is the American Rescue Plan Act, which was like a law passed like a million years ago now. And the rules for, and one of the pieces of that law was aid to governments across the country, including municipalities. And Brattleboro has a chunk of money of which it's never really seen before, right? A 3-point-something million little windfall, which we now have $2.7 million left to play with. So I see that ARPA falls under COVID recovery, right? It's COVID recovery money. But I don't want to get bogged down in semantics. I just want the public to know what ARPA is and what it all means.
Well, those were semantics.
I know. It's like Tim's pre-comment. It's like, I can't, tough.
So now that we've had a pre-comment and some semantics, do we want to start talking about, yes, Liz, thank you.
So of the 3 points that currently exist under diversity, equity, and conclusion.
Can we talk about?
Wait, can we
So
do one at a
so
time?
jumping,
You're jumping.
you're jumping.
So Liz, and I want to be really clear. I don't really want to work from the previous document. I think people can pull from it if they want to, but I'm not going to I don't want to go through demo lists because we really should be generating a new thing here.
And I do have a comment about COVID. Okay, so yes, ARPA, I want our goal to be to establish a process that is transparent and accountable to make best use of the town's ARPA funds. Period.
Yeah, Liz.
I want us to be open to the varying stages of COVID as it evolves. Yeah, for the public health of the
Right,
community.
to continue to respond.
Okay, yeah, let's go with that for a second. I think, Jess, you.
I had something similar or along those lines, but it's just ensuring that public services remain accessible for folks through whatever level of pandemic we're at. Because I know after hearing some of the school board meetings we've had recently, it's accessibility is still an issue for some folks related to COVID and community transmission is not as monitored and continues to go through our community. Some people will find that access to public events, public services, public facilities is not, anyway, the goal is make sure stuff is still accessible.
Which is different from my thought, which
It
is,
is.
which is that COVID is evolving and changing and that we should respond as needed
Yep.
for the public health of the community.
Yeah.
You're speaking more to meetings and public
Services
access.
as well, right?
Services,
Access to
okay.
town
programs.
services.
Yeah. So access to town services, programs, et cetera, keeping in mind that COVID's not over and we've got many, potentially more, unfortunately, more stages to it. And that the board needs to be sensitive and react to that appropriately. I would say for me, when it comes to COVID, I would like to have a check-in at some point in this year on how the hybrid meeting setup is going and ways that we can modify or change it if we need to make it even better. So basically, we haven't really had that long. I mean, we've had budget season, but we haven't had like a whole year of having a hybrid setup. And so I'm sort of excited for that, but also I think that there are probably ways that we can even make it better. So I'd like the board to be keeping that in mind as we move forward. So I think that's on COVID, unless there's anything else. I think now we really needed to talk about ARPA, which Daniel started in.
Oh,
Was there
I
more
thought
to
it
say
was
than
just
what I said?
perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there was no other discussion besides you, so that's not sufficient for it to be a board priority, or it's got to have a little bit other backing.
Well done. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. So yeah, how do you feel about how Daniel spoke on ARPA?
I think it was finally spoke.
Finally
Yeah, I'm not sure there's anything objectionable in that. Once we get into the weeds, there's going to be ideas as to how the process should go. But I think you're trying to help us resist the temptation to go right into that process right now.
Yes.
And try to-
Too specific.
Too specific.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think I'll hold my ARPA comments for now.
My goal would be to establish a process.
Yeah. Now, are setting any kind of timelines in these, Yoshi, helpful or not helpful?
I mean, this is supposed to be a yearly. Right?
Yeah.
So this is not really it's like a timeline. If you want to have a continuously process on when you want to check in on things, I think that could be appropriate.
Yeah.
But I think that most of your goals are supposed to be
Okay.
this is a yearly goal.
I would imagine that you will come to us and have this discussion when this discussion needs to happen.
Correct. Yes, as we've discussed before, yes.
And since Daniel got some good feedback on that statement, I think I want to just point out that we have a process already, of course, that we're already following as a board, and it's called local democracy. So it is our charge, our duty to listen to our constituents' concerns and to take all that information in and to weigh that and make good decisions for our town. So it's a bit of a counterpoint to what you're saying, that to say that we must establish a process, to me, implies a little bit that we don't already have a process of democratic decision-making. So
Well,
I'm saying that
and
here we are
And
as,
here we are in a public meeting.
exactly.
Yeah, look at all the public.
Yeah. I gotta say,
What I have to say.
I don't think it counts as a select board meeting unless I hear a little bit about democracy from Tim. So I'm glad that we
Take that as a
Oh, great.
compliment.
we check the box.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, sure. I agree with that too. So anything else on COVID response / ARPA?
Yes,
Yes,
it might fall under ARPA,
fair.
but it's similar to one of these that we have, restoring the vitality of outdoor public spaces. But sort of going a little bit beyond that, because, we're sort of past most of the pandemic, but a lot of the organizations and groups that fostered activity in the downtown were all volunteer or and have had their capacity really diminished by COVID. So just continuing to provide significant support in whatever ways we can to make sure that those sorts of community events continue to happen in downtown, in public spaces.
I'm entirely,
Isn't there
oh,
a
actually,
process
Liz.
for that?
Well,
I hope so.
that was one of those things that I wanted to move to like planning and housing. Just because I see it as a planning function. In the bigger, I mean, you're talking about volunteer groups and so forth, but I was talking more about enacting like the downtown plan elements and other activating public space initiatives. But as a corollary, your plan would work in that section.
I think I can tell Liz, you and I have a couple of similar things on our list. Yeah, I actually had a similar thought. I completely agree with the drive of your point. I just think I would want to move it into planning / housing or planning. We're changing housing to planning to the planning because I think it's moving out of COVID.
I
personally.
would be delighted for you guys to organize these ideas any way you see fit.
Yeah.
I don't have.
To read the minutes of all of this.
So let's couch that to when we talk about planning, and we'll put it and we'll discuss it a little bit further then.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else on ARPA COVID? No. Okay. So let's move forward to. And
No, don't.
No.
interpret
Okay.
that.
So moving to governance, that thing that we do all the time. Daniel.
Oh, no, I was going to make a lofty speech about democracy. Wait a second.
Oh.
Tim already did it.
It's gonna come back to bite you.
The only thing I want to say about governance is that one of our goals this year, I believe, should be to establish a process. No, we should move towards appointing a charter review commission.
We not statutorily, we charter wise have to. So it's,
Yeah, well, I recall a couple of years ago, Patrick presented some uncertainty about which year was absolutely the last year that we had to do it by. It's this one. All right. So
it's this one.
So
Let's do it.
it sounds like the statute and
I don't think it's statute. I think
Ian
it's
and
just
I
charter.
are aligned.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's charter.
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah,
fantastic.
Great.
for sure. It should base. I feel like the bullet point will just be create a charter review committee.
Yes, appoint a charter review commission. I would also like to make clear whether it's charter review or charter revision, because those are two different things. Whatever,
Well, I'm sure the
whatever
staff
law
could-
says.
Yeah, we can clarify.
Review informs the revision.
I think we actually had that conversation
review
in,
before you
we actually had
revise
that
it.
conversation in when we were discussing it, so
Yeah.
we'll clarify it.
Huh. Okay, Liz.
Well, the other thing that remains, I know you don't want to talk about the remains, but the
No.
youth vote,
Ah,
understanding and rehashing the youth vote in some fashion.
Yeah, figuring out a strategy for how to get that.
And the legal aspects of it, why it might have been not approved.
Tim.
I was there for the vote, just
Yes.
more by chance than by conviction. But both in comments afterwards to me and standing up right in the Senate chambers, Jeanette White has pledged to help us with whatever path forward we want to take. Anyway, I won't dive into the weeds on why that failed, but I think it's pretty public knowledge. So.
And I was also contacted by Becca Balance office twice, once by her staff and once by Becca herself, to talk about how she wanted to work very hard to get that passed, but it was not to be, and that she's also available as a resource to us.
So if we have that, we also should incorporate the other charter change that's pending, that was voted in by the voters in the 2020, which is the adopt new charter changes that were made by other towns' charters and were approved by the legislature, that we would be able to approve them without legislative approval. So that's another charter change that's currently pending. Are you questioning that?
Yeah.
No, I'm just not that familiar with it. So
What was on the ballot
Right.
No, but I mean, the specifics of it, we can put it on the list, but I'm not sure that we're all assenting to it or just considering it. Because I don't know what it is.
Well,
No,
It's all-
I thought the
it's been
town
voted
voted
on.
for it. All right.
But still, I don't.
So it's basically at the beginning of the process that this charter change was at in 2019.
Right, but I don't know what all the other towns have agreed to in terms of their charter changes that through this mechanism we will be adopting. I just don't know what they are.
Well, it
it's
would
more
be
than
up to
so
the
much
town.
that.
We would.
It would be
choose.
the town would choose.
Right.
It's more of like, it would kind of create a list of, again, I'm kind of getting into the weeds now, but I don't know. Am I misinterpreting this at all, Patrick, or?
No, I think as originally conceived, the idea was that because each charter gets approved by the legislature, if the legislature has approved a series of powers for one town, then shouldn't another town be able to embrace those as well at a local level without having to go seek additional legislative support for them? So in effect, what this would create would be a menu of all manner of different authorities that a town could choose to embrace as long as it was already approved by the legislature in somebody's charter.
Yeah.
So are
Is that
you
a
suggesting that
That's, so,
That's the law
so,
in
so,
the
so,
state of
so,
Vermont.
okay, so it's not the law. It would have to be adopted by the legislature. What I'm saying is the board is saying that we are endorsing the voters' decision to vote in the charter change of the youth vote. And we're saying we're going to try to support the next step. I'm saying that the town voted another charter change a year later, which is the one that we've just described. And if we're going to endorse one in moving it forward in the process, we need to endorse both because they're both the will of the voters and they need to both have the board's energy towards. Yeah.
So we'd call that back up and take another look at that, just to make sure we're all on the same page of what we're going to put in our.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So on our list of goals is to look at that and give support.
Review the vote of a couple of years past about.
Yeah, and if there are pending
municipalities.
charter changes of the Brattleboro charter that are in the legislative gears, that the board should be helping to push those through.
Yeah.
I
Like
guess.
181, for instance.
Yeah, I don't even know how many, there might be others, right? I don't even know.
There's a lot of moving parts because the session is still going on, so.
Okay, other governance?
Me.
Yes.
I'm excited about this one. I want to make sure that our committees are all functioning because they have enough members, like the Accessibility Committee and the Arts Committee. They haven't had enough members to meet a quorum. So engaging more people in committee service and work.
I have a
Is
thought, I have a thought on that, but I'm hear from other people first.
That's a
Daniel's-
noble goal.
Noble goal?
No thoughts
I think
currently.
I think it's great. I think it's a great goal. I would just add to it maybe that we like look at the non-functioning committees, evaluating non-functioning committees or ones that are dormant or whatever. And we try to fill everything we can. And if something's not working, evaluate and modify committees that aren't currently functioning, something like that.
I think the term moribund might be used.
Yeah.
Or perhaps giving them something like this is a commission for the year.
Hmm.
Now that you are staffed or
Mhm.
full up on volunteers, here's what you can do. So that they have a journey to go on.
We should dictate to the committees what their work is.
Well, they serve at our pleasure.
They do.
Yes, they do.
So if they don't please us.
Well, for example, the Arts Committee doesn't have a clear commission. At least that's what Peter told us last year. And the Accessibility Committee had some trouble with what their focus was last year. before they stop meeting.
That's how you want to describe it.
That's how I want to describe it. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Just
We need
So-
a good committee.
I think that's entirely reasonable. Yeah, so staffing, filling committees, providing committees with direction, should they need it,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
It's great.
I think it's plenty for Yoshi to write down.
Thank you.
Any other governance?
Something I don't know where it goes.
Okay, so
So
I
towards
was
the end?
anticipating that.
Towards
I was anticipating that. I think we have a catch. We have a, all right. You
Now
couldn't
what?
squeeze it in somewhere else.
Well, it's probably
What is it?
governance. That's
It's-
all I'm saying.
Let's hear it.
Reappraisal?
Mm-hmm.
It's governance.
You know, is that
Is that our
us?
work?
It's
Possibly.
staff's work, certainly,
Right.
but
It's,
we need to
Say
do it
it's gotta go.
at
It's
some
gotta
point,
happen.
at some point.
Right.
It's like going
And
housing.
it's, I've been actually getting some questions about it, and it's
Yeah.
reasonable for taxpayers to want to know.
So there are, staff is preparing something, so that will come hopefully soon, but there will be various options possibly.
Okay.
But there is a path
Mhm.
that the select board can take and not take. So it's
Okay.
something that they're working on.
So again, I always like to point out that there's a lot of things that happen with this board and what we do that doesn't show up in goals necessarily,
Yeah.
because it's part of the nitty gritty of not day to day, certainly, but month to month work that the select board does. It's possible that falls into it, but I think at least asking for a report on status or staff's opinion on timing is reasonable.
And that's exactly what.
Yeah. thank you.
Yeah. So do we feel like that should be a goal? Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Well,
Having a clear, transparent path forward on the reassessment, I think is.
Path to reappraisal.
reappraisal.
Clear and transparent is what I heard.
Oh, and Daniel talks about clear and
Those
transparency.
words, they're great words, aren't
And
they?
They're
Democratic-
pretty important words in democracy.
Oh.
I mean, transparency. Clear,
not
I don't know. Not moribund, no.
All right,
Very
so
much
not hearing anything else on governance now. Let's move on to the diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I like these things, these things we can check off. but
Yeah,
We
done.
don't have those anymore in the new one.
Ian,
Yes, Daniel.
I would like to say that I think that these three headings here are worth continuing in this year's goals.
Okay.
Want to read those?
Yes, one says view all decisions through an equity lens. The second one says continue to build staff capacity in all departments through the leadership of the management team and the idea, I guess, committee, which is inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. And then the third one says extend the work of the management team and idea committee to include members of the select board. Tim, we can cross it off. That happened.
It's been done.
There you go.
So we only
Love
need the top
crossing.
two.
Well,
I
You know,
think
number
the top two are worth.
Is
continuing.
also really has been accomplished. Because there is a committee and all the management team is part of it and they meet monthly and blah, blah,
Right.
blah.
I guess because it's a continuum. We should still, that should still continue.
Absolutely.
How does the rest of the board feel about Daniel's suggestion?
I mean, I could see number 3 changing to continue to extend.
There you go.
Can also do that. I would,
Oh, it's already been.
Is there anything, Yoshi, you'd like to tell us about how this is going and operating?
I mean, exactly what you're saying, it is continuing. We do meet every month. We have trainings, all the directors just had there's a continuing series that we're working on and discussions that have been very productive. We tend to take the entire morning to work on those issues. And I think that's something that we'll continue to do. That's something that our HR director has really focused the town on. I think a lot of people in the town are very appreciative, or our employees are very appreciative of those efforts. So, but I think continuing the practice isn't a bad thing.
I think it's a very culture changing activity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just semantics. I mean, because it was extend the work and that work has been extended. So you can continue, but you're not continuing
might-
to extend.
It might extend
Sure,
in
the
a
word.
different.
We can, we'll reword it.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think, okay, so not to get stuck on number 3 on whether we're continuing or not. I think generally though, I think that Daniel's point's well taken and that I just want to thank town staff for this work. And I think while it's kind of a unique part of our goals, it's a really important one to have in there. And it is just continuing work that we should always have in mind. So, and try to actualize in our decision making. So, cool. Community safety.
I would think that we were continuing with these same 3 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to propose, so point number 2 says hold special select board meetings to review progress in August and December. I think that it was helpful to have regular check-ins last year, and I think it'll continue to be helpful. I thought it might be worth considering whether those times of the year are good times to check in.
Why don't we leave it up-
August seems like a long ways away.
Yeah, why don't we leave it up to Yoshi to suggest some times?
Yeah,
for
we
us?
can do that. I'll talk to staff and figure out.
And I guess one other thing is, the big thing that changed since this goal was written and today is that we now have $300,000 in the community safety fund that, has all been approved by town meeting. And so then needs, oh, I already see it. It's already
Yeah,
here.
yeah, look at that. Look at those words in
I
there.
knew when I read it, it made sense. Oh, well, good. Yeah, we should continue with that.
But I add the word transparent to it. I know, it's been like the
no.
word of the day.
No,
Yeah.
equitable, accessible, works for me.
And I'm forcing myself to kind of bite my tongue here a little bit because there's a lot I want to speak on this, but I think that getting into specifics starts to sort of take us out from the general 1,000-foot goal level that we should be talking now. So
Can
there's
I-
like a lot of things.
Can I
Very similar
offer?
to your ARPA, discussion, same thing. You're establishing, which is what you've said right here, equitable and accessible process, which is something that we'll be looking at.
Yeah.
So ARPA has a deadline, but the Community Safety Fund does not. Could we add a goal or some language about spending some of that money within the next year?
I think it's kind of in there in number 3, but I have this suspicion that Yoshi is preparing things to bring to us later in the upcoming half of this year.
I just would like to see it start moving out there.
Right. And I think that's what number 3 is for making allocations or from. I
Can we
think that
read it,
would,
number 3?
Yeah, why don't
Yeah,
you read
I'm sorry.
it, because it's not about.
yeah, define an equitable and accessible process, methodology, criteria, timing for making allocations from the community safety fund.
This process will be developed in the first half of 2022.
Yeah. Yep.
Sounds like by June.
Which was
to
a
May.
goal, right?
Yeah, and that's a goal,
You know,
let's keep to it, I
Yeah.
think. Let's try to, yeah.
So G.
I feel you. I want to see some of that fossil-free fuel fund money
Yes.
moving out.
That's the
Whoa,
next
whoa, you're
page.
jumping every-
No, no, I'm just saying though that
Which we are also working.
where we're all,
Let's
yes,
spend
and I'm trying not to, get into the specifics, but yeah, I think one of the things that I've appreciated about my time on the board is making some of these really these funds that are addressing issues that have come up. And I want to see that money used. I want to see it moving. So yeah, I echo you. Anything else on community safety? Ooh, okay, housing slash, or would you like to remove housing and just make it planning?
Planning and housing.
Oh,
Oh, you want to put planning first? Do you have a little bit of a bias? I
I
feel like a
do.
little bit, yeah.
Yes.
You're a planner.
Oh, yeah.
Were you on the planning commission?
I was. Am I a
Wait,
licensed
you were on the
professional planner?
planning commission?
So was Jess.
Okay, so planning and housing.
Yeah, well, not only have we completed a housing study, but we've completed a housing action plan.
Yes.
An implementation plan.
We do.
We did. Well,
Sounds like
There's a
3
bunch
people
of
want an
things.
implementation plan.
so first from the other page, I would suggest that we have an open space planning element as a goal.
Can you elaborate a little?
Yes. In the downtown plan that was pre-COVID, it was reported on just before COVID began. There were a number of really interesting initiatives to link open spaces within the downtown together. And while all of those don't necessarily, can't necessarily easily be dusted off, I think a base of them and those action items that staff could bring us a set of revised initiatives to link the downtown open space, to make the downtown have it. What it was a series of parks linked in the downtown, and walkways and bikeways and paths. So that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And but I don't think that the staff should necessarily be held exactly to that, but that they should use their judgment to bring us initiatives that might be worthwhile.
Don't let the downtown design plan gather too much dust on the shelf.
Yeah. And that the board see something in this year, in this select board year, that we see some potential options that we could be moving towards.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely planning department and Parks and Rec, and there were so many.
But in terms of, I mean, but then there's also housing initiatives, in addition, to an implementation plan for the study, there's elements that are regulatory in nature. Maybe that just explains the implementation plan, but there's things that are regulatory in nature, but then there needs to be fostering and encouraging builders and landlords to create new units, new housing units. And for example, there was that initiative that allowed vacant units to be brought back online, and that used state funding. And I bet you state funding could additionally be sought, because that was a really great program for Brattleboro for the types of housing issues that we have in terms of getting vacant and dilapidated and underutilized housing added to the list.
Do you want to go through the housing plan and pull out specific things that should be on our list? Or do you want to like lump that all in with the create a implementation plan and do it?
I want to create an implementation plan because I think that the staff should come to us and with the specifics and what they would suggest to us for our review.
Yes.
So
Great.
controversial idea, potentially. Do you want to attach a number or a percentage of the 500 housing units that we're trying to, address in this year? Now, it wouldn't be having built them, but having a kind of plan. So for example, Frost Street, those aren't units, but those are, we have loaned money to that, and those are happening hopefully. And I would incorporate those into this year's accomplishments. And so would we have an interest in attaching a number to that?
I wouldn't.
Liz says no.
So I would like to propose a slight rejigging to your idea. I would like to be regularly updated on how many new units have been created in Brattleboro. Happy to see that in a monthly report. Happy to get a quarterly figure. But if we do not know how many units have been created, then that goal of 500 units needs to be created. Like, how would we ever know when it's been achieved?
Yeah, and I'll suggest that Sue sort of has been,
And I would
we've
imagine
just
Sue
never
has.
formalized that ask.
Yeah. So I would like to be regularly updated. Sue can come with like a balloon or something and cake, and we can say
Or a
this
tape
month,
measure
there were
perhaps.
30 new units created in the town.
Wow, well, that seems like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, we like,
Cake is not mandatory.
We did do some of that work tonight.
Yes, we sure did.
And I think that's something we'll define, because there's different stages.
Yeah.
We do have, people petitioning and going through, That doesn't mean, just because we
Right,
haven't got the
right.
funding yet, there's a lot of process to it. So we'll define what you
Right.
mean by new unit.
Right.
Like, everything's gone through and they're gonna start construction.
Right.
Is that a new unit?
Well, I
Or
think
is it
that would be
complete?
interesting. It would be interesting to see
Yeah.
for the public's benefit as well as ours, what all is happening, right? Because, yeah, things are in different stages of.
And we'll try to determine, what would be most useful,
Yeah.
because sometimes you could promise something
Uh-huh.
and then that project never happens,
Yeah.
right? And then, so all of a sudden, right, you could plan it.
Yeah.
Then you found out you have no funding, so then all of a sudden, we just promised a 100-unit place that has,
Right.
that's never gonna show up. So.
So if we could be regularly updated on how many.
Sure, we'll
Units
come up with
are
a deal.
in-
You'll come up with
In
a
the mix.
rubric. for
Yeah,
that.
something that's feasible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we can
regular
stand
update.
behind. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
We feel good about that?
Yes, I was
Okay.
gonna make a comment on number 3.
Mhm.
Would the comment be, we should do that?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we
Um,
should still do that if we can.
Before we get into it, it is 8 o'clock. And we pause.
put a bookmark.
Yeah, so at 8 o'clock, we give our interpreters a break. Thank you very much. And we'll take just a 10-minute break till 8:10, and then we'll resume discussion, starting with Tim's point. All right, it is 8:09, and we are returning to the Brattleboro Selectboard meeting after a 10-minute break. Tim, I believe we left off with you. Do you want to repeat I don't actually think you made the comment yet. So, we are currently on housing
Yep.
/ planning.
I was simply, thank you, Chair. Simply gonna point out that number 3 is review the impacts of the rental housing deposit ordinance. Concerning trying to gather data on changes in the monthly average rent over the past year. We should still have that there. It will be a disaster and everyone will blame it on different things, depending on your leanings, your opinion on the rental ordinance. But I think it's healthy to take a look.
Mhm.
That's
I
all I
don't,
wanted to say.
I don't think the housing study collected the proper data to judge.
No,
No.
no, this is talking about sort of a separate thing.
Yeah, I know, but I think we kind of believed in our naivete that the housing study would inform this.
Okay. I'm not, well,
We're also-
maybe because we made it a separate thing, I thought maybe.
Yeah, and housing's been so screwy because of the pandemic.
There's the issue at really getting to much of it, but it would be informative to know if there's been a wholesale rise in rents. We should know this and try to look at it.
Daniel?
I just want to rebut the proposition that whatever, let me say it in simpler language. I don't know if reviewing the impacts of the rental housing deposit ordinance should be exclusively related to, did rents go up? One impact of the rental housing deposit ordinance was it easier to move into a place? So like rents going up is not the only indicator of whether the ordinance was good or bad.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I mean,
So I
We
would,
can study it in all its aspects.
Yes, we should do our best to study whether it's, being helpful and.
yeah, and it's gonna be limited what we can know for sure.
Exactly.
we could also alternatively decouple the rental housing ordinance from this entirely and simply have a goal that we better understand what the rental housing market is like in Brattleboro. Because the housing study, while was very successful in some elements, didn't take all of the data necessary for us to really have a full understanding of that. I know that we initially said that we were going to review it, but it seems like we're getting to a point now where we just don't have the kind of data that we're capable of having a real review that's substantive and not just.
So the general goal of understanding, and maybe we'll ask Daniel.
And I'll ask my colleagues.
Yeah.
Um,
And others.
How do you feel about that?
You are suggesting, going into Scottish with their accent. You're suggesting that we don't talk about the rental housing deposit ordinance as part of that, you're just stripping that away?
That's
No,
actually,
that's missing the entire point of number 3.
yeah, no, I'm saying that we're not adopting this document.
Yeah,
And
well-
I'm saying that I'm saying that we had this big goal that we are going to review this rental housing ordinance because it had a lot of discussion when we implemented it.
Yeah.
And it seems like that was kind of an unrealistic thing, that we weren't really going to be able to review it based on the information that we have. And I don't even know whether we're going to get information that's going to allow us to review it in the way that you and Daniel want to. And so I'm wondering if at the goal setting stage, we want to modify this to actually be something that we think we can accomplish.
No more?
No more.
So I agree that looking at everything concerning rental, including impacts on renters, impacts on landlords is a good idea. But the entire reason that this exists here is because we are only one of 2 towns/cities in the state of Vermont that has such an ordinance. And it's good to see if it's doing any good or any bad. Because
Well, that's
it's-
true, because one town rescinded it.
Correct. So, and you literally have 2/5 of, assumedly, at least 2/5 of this board that question the value
Yes,
of this rental ordinance.
yes.
So
Aware.
if it's not doing good, it should be considered to not be there.
Okay, all right.
Okay? And I'm happy to lose that fight again, but I deserve that fight.
I'm happy to fight it again too.
Okay.
So I think then I'm fine with, I'm okay with that. I support keeping it in, but then I would want to keep Daniel's broader language so that it's not just about increasing whether rents have gone up or down.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right, there might be a few different ways one could judge whether it's been impactful or not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know, I'm not that smart.
Perhaps the planning department could suggest. a
I would
couple
imagine
of-
the planning department might
I
have
would-
something.
I bet they do.
Planners can inform us.
Those planners, good old planners, where would we be without them?
All right.
we'd have no plan.
Continuing on housing and planning.
Oh,
No, I'm done.
Daniel?
I think that I just want to kind of just, I think Liz is on the downtown plan. I kind of wanted to just emphasize it again and just ways that we can be thinking about, just revitalizing and pushing, but like having actionable steps. Like that's what I really want to see it, because we've talked a lot about it. We have a lot of ideas, but I want the board to get this year some things that we can start at least putting in the works that can be looking towards some real change that can help. It'll help everyone like to do
Physical
that.
changes that come out of the money that we spent on a planning report.
Yeah.
To revitalize it down.
Yeah, much like we're doing with housing. Daniel.
Perhaps the planning department could do a review of the various plans that are sitting on its shelves and think about which of these might be timely to come off the shelf, given a once in a generation influx of money.
I think that might be a little too.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm just back up. So Liz was kind of worried that the downtown design plan was going to sit on the shelf and nothing would ever come of it.
Yeah, I wasn't worried because I was actually more excited about the fact that the pandemic's over and we can pick up where we left off.
There's
And
the
that
headline now, Chris.
Yeah,
Chris can write it.
and then.
Liz McLaughlin thinks pandemic is
Well, in terms of, getting back on that horse of the downtown master plan. And there were some really exciting things there, and I know you appreciated them, and we all did. And we want to see some action.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I added anything to your point at all. I just wanted to emphasize it. I just really feel very strongly that I just want some things before the board that are clear and
Great.
yeah.
Maybe I
Headline.
could revise my comment. There was, there's money available to the town because of ARPA. There's also potentially like infrastructure money at some point in the future, maybe, right?
Mhm.
And I recall several years ago, there was like I don't know if it was a plan or like a design study for the Whetstone corridor.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
You
one.
know, and like that work was inspiring and thought-provoking and expensive and unlikely to ever come to anything. And I just wonder, given the availability of funds right now, whether it's worth at least taking another look at some of the things that plan was suggesting.
So I think we'll come up with language, but what I'm hearing you saying is looking at projects that have been proposed in the past and possibly see if there's monies
Yeah.
that could, because they were shelved in the past, doesn't mean that we can
Right,
consider them today.
right. Is there any life in any of those funds?
We feel good about that?
Yep,
Okay.
a reassessment.
Great. Anything else on planning housing?
I go, because I know that the planning commission is working on, bike and pedestrian planning.
And I think.
And does that go here? or does
I'm really
that
glad you brought
go-
that up. I think we're gonna move it into the utilities, traffic, pedestrian, safety, all
That makes
one
sense.
category
right.
is the plan. So we're gonna put that one in a little later.
And then I guess we'll get to it later. It's cannabis. It's got its own section.
I figured we just keep that because it's
Not
gonna
in
be-
planning.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a
Okay.
pretty big one this year,
Alright.
so, okay,
You
and,
know, along those same lines, though, there's a lot of things in sustainability that you might want to move to transportation.
okay.
And I'll flesh that out when we get. to it.
Yeah. And I want to just make a quick point that, we're talking about all of our goals this year, and that's a lot for one conversation. So when this comes back to us for next meeting, we can also add things if in the meantime you've come up with other ideas. So this isn't the only shot you've got at these categories. All
Just
right.
gonna say.
Cool. So actually moving on to sustainability. Liz, do you want to start us off with kind of what you were thinking?
Well, first of all, people approach me about sustainability actions that are more like household specific. And so I understand that the planning department has like a newsletter, but I wondered if the sustainability coordinator could add to that kind of, sustainability actions that people can do in their households. Because I think the sustainability coordinator works in a variety of avenues, internally and externally, and food, and, very diverse, but a lot of people, I think, are looking for guidance about what they can do in their homes.
So I guess more to keep it more broad, right, is to improve guidance from sustainability, community guidance, improve community guidance.
Yeah. And some other things is that, so the VTrans, when the bridge over 91 was built and designed, I was on the aesthetic evaluation committee. And one of the things that was an element in it was, stop laughing.
Smoking.
There was a pedestrian walkway that was supposed to span the bridge underneath the bridge.
Oh my God, that would be incredible.
And, across the West River, and it would go from that plaza on either side. And I was just reminded that that would be a tremendous thing, and we should ask VTrans to do that.
And they will say,
Well, they'll say, oh, the money, but they can't really say, oh, the money these days, because they have so much of it. And this was an identifiable action in the design of the bridge.
What happened to my zip line idea?
still on the table, I think.
I'm sure you can.
That's cheaper.
Oh, but a
It's cheaper,
pedestrian.
but
would be
it's
so-
not
that'd be
as
incredible.
Not as
accessible.
Someone was about to bear it. I can walk over
Yeah.
the bridge.
So there's that. And then the C's, the multi multimodal transportation, that's, you wanted to move that to a transportation section?
Yeah, so that'll go into the next
Yeah,
section.
and then this expand the bus service, you know, the end of this thing above, talking about coordinating micro transit, that has a lot to do with refugees and worker transportation projects. So that should be part of the bus initiative goal.
Okay.
And overall, I mean, I definitely believe that bus transportation has a major sustainability faction, but let's keep it in the transportation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at some point, it's got to land in one place. So,
Yeah.
okay. Other thoughts on sustainability?
No, there's a lot there, so.
Oh, one more thought. The cataloging of greenhouse gas emissions and carbon sequestration, blah, blah, blah. The Sustainability Commission coordinator had a kind of back of the envelope, and that was fine. I think I don't think we need to spend money on a detailed plan in those regards.
The planner says not to spend money on the detailed plan.
You know,
Well,
that's my opinion. You know, I think,
so you'd want to remove it as a goal.
yes.
There we go. There's a little controversy. Great. So what are we thinking on that, Daniel?
You know, this is where I kind of wonder, like, do we overstep our bounds when we're directing, you know, like a project that town staff are working on? Is this something that is already underway, the cataloging of greenhouse gas emissions and carbon sequestration?
I'd have to talk to him.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you come back to us and
Yeah.
tell us the status of it, and then we can decide.
Right.
It kind of, I mean, it sort of begs the question to me of like, is that actually an appropriate thing to be in a goal? I don't know, like, it wouldn't be saying no to doing it, Liz, in my opinion. It would be more just like, this is kind of one step towards actualizing a goal of the board, which is
Carbon neutrality.
carbon neutrality or, yeah.
Right,
So-
I think, right, this is too specific in that if you want to have something that leads toward this would be the action item after you've said that you want to move the town toward carbon neutrality, or looking at the way that the town vehicles are currently emitting, and can we do something more? Like, I think that's the general goal. That'd be more of a general goal on sustainability. So it allows staff to then look at, okay, when we're doing purchasing or when we're doing making certain actions, we're meeting toward this goal, rather than specifically saying what that goal would be. So I think you're right. I think that was very specific to just a action rather than a goal.
Okay.
It's more an action item.
Yeah, but I just think, you know, there's rule of thumb for the carbon sequestration of forests. And Brattleboro has a lot of forests. And, you know, we could get that
I'll find it.
rule of thumb answer
Absolutely.
without spending a lot of taxpayer dollars.
So, okay, so I think what I'm hearing, oh, Jessica.
Well, I just was gonna say that I think that sort of also relates to our housing goals, so that we're not destroying the resources we have as far as becoming carbon neutral and sequestering these greenhouse gases, that we don't develop those lands in favor of housing. Or we at least have the information to balance that.
And I think that's, you do have the Act 250 that addresses that from the
I
state
think that's
side,
true.
but this would be more of a local, even to go beyond that.
Right, 250 doesn't address carbon sequestration,
I see what you're saying.
right?
Yeah, but our zoning does.
Right.
I mean, it directs housing in areas where it's appropriate to have housing, and nobody says put housing in a forest. You know, the zoning says
Right.
mostly to build, the development is encouraged east of 91, for example. And the forests are generally west of 91. And so, you know, there's appropriateness of the land for land use.
Sure, but last year, the the board approved the solar development on forested land that was zoned industrial, but it was forest, and that would
Yes.
All right,
really
so-
spurred a big conversation about this. So
That's a much more difficult, for example, the planning commission recommended that decision. Let me remind you.
yes, we
I'm gonna
Getting granular.
end this conversation because it's gotten way too granular. So I would like to pull us back to, I think, what was an interesting point brought up by Liz, which is that, and I'm gonna modify it by saying that I think we should probably remove this goal, not as a non-endorsement of this as a thing to do, but more that it's too granular for a select board goal, and that it should be a broader thing like carbon neutrality or something in that way, to give town staff and Yoshi more of a broader direction where they can bring maybe this as a thing to spend money on if they think it's driving towards that goal, but that it's actually not appropriate here. And one of our jobs tonight is to try to make this as much of an effective document as possible for Yoshi and town staff. So that's where I'm landing on this.
So,
Daniel's had his hand up.
yeah.
A little bit like we need to understand where we are in relation to our large audacious housing goal, and we need to understand the rental housing market in town. We also need to understand where we are on our climate goals. And so this was an action step, really, that was an attempt to provide a better answer to that question of where are we in relation to our already pledged and supported climate goals.
Mhm.
And so maybe a less granular kind of thing could be understand where we are in relation to our
How
climate
about,
goals.
yeah, are we redefining? Too strong?
No, I mean, so we already have
We have,
goals that we as a body said, yes, these are our goals.
yeah,
And when we don't know where we are in relation to them, it's hard to
So
Not much
it's
of
like a
anything.
report card.
We have, wait, are you talking about goals related to sustainability and emissions and?
emissions mostly.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, I had no idea, being a newbie.
yeah.
yes,
Can't
You
say
heard
that
of the
anymore.
Paris Agreement? The Paris Accord?
yes, we have.
Yeah.
That's I'm joking. It's a super sarcastic way to say it.
Okay,
Take
Okay.
measure. Oh, that's it. You'll take measure. I'll bust it out.
all right. So I think I just want to add something completely different if we're okay with moving on from that part of sustainability. I just want to, I would like to see, I'd like to see a goal that's simply Brattleboro being trying to work on our connections with other communities in Vermont, showing what we're doing in sustainability and also marketing our sustainability, so that, yeah, I want to see how the fact that we are so forward thinking or I'd like to think that we're forward thinking in how we're looking at the future of Brattleboro, how that can help other communities in the state, and then also how that can make other people interested in Brattleboro.
For example, we're the only municipality that uses cow power.
Exactly. Things like that.
Curbside compost.
So that's pretty broad, but it's an element of, it's an element of this that I would like to see.
7,000.
Make it so.
What's that?
Make it so.
I don't know. Well,
Star
I'm
Trek.
looking for buy-in or not buy-in.
Yeah,
Sure.
Sure, cool. Well, good, Daniel.
The blowing our own trumpet thing, I'm never like a
Oh my
huge fan of. We have much work to do. You know.
Yeah, it's also it's the,
Speaking of work,
So let's just move on.
no,
The rest of you were excited
Just
about
let
it.
it go.
I'm just
I'm
grumpy.
gonna let go. I'm gonna
Okay,
let go. All right, it's about being a leader.
Sure.
So we're moving the trails and the bridge and the buses
We
to
should assume that they're just not.
a transportation
We're
section.
not moving from, we're not taking this document as it
Right.
is. So if you want to bring up these things in the next one, bring them up in the next one.
Very good.
Okay, so next one is going to be utilities / traffic pedestrian safety as the category.
Chair Goodnow,
Yes.
please explain why utilities and traffic safety are somehow in the same
They should be
group.
separate.
You want to be separate?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Makes no sense to me.
fine. I was working with, yes, that's fine. All right, so let's just do utilities then.
Stormwater
I'm
master
telling
plan.
you, this stormwater utility is such a high priority because it allows us to recoup funds from the state for control of the state's land
Yeah.
within Brattleboro.
But this is already something that is kind of like underway, right? There's like, does the board have this as a goal, or is this just staff work that's happening anyway?
This board member
This is
definitely.
an
has.
opportunity for us to feel good about our work.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
So I get my trumpet out as
How
well.
about our staff's work?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I guess it's.
No, it's something that it would not be happening without our commitment, right? So it's something
Right.
that,
That's
We
debatable,
want-
but we're happy that the staff is
well,
working to accomplish this goal.
I got a feeling Patrick has an update.
I don't think it's a bad thing at all for the board to remind staff to get working on this. So,
something that we,
you know,
It's something that.
this is something that needs to happen. We know it needs to happen. There's a lot of stuff day to day that can get in the way of, long-term planning. So a reminder from the board that this is a priority is not a bad thing.
I think part of it too is that, with both myself and Dan being new, this something is a particularly large undertaking.
Mhm.
It's that we're sort of spacing it out for the select board because
But
this
I
is something that's going to substantially change the way we do things.
I think that we have committed like consultant money.
We
to
have a
pursue
report.
this And a roadmap
We
in
do.
that report. to
We do.
pursue that.
We do.
And therefore, I continue to think it's a very high priority.
Good.
Okay. Any other utilities discussions? Daniel?
No, because it's just regular work. We'll have the utilities budget conversation in the near future, right? Because we had like a shift in the amount of money that we needed to spend on the new water treatment plan. So we could potentially look at the rates, or even though it's not a rate setting year.
Potentially.
I remember we had this conversation last year.
Yeah, again, I think that would be more
Yeah,
specific.
yeah. Ian, don't you have something about utilities and water?
Yes. I'm actually gonna do it now.
do it.
Yeah, I would like to add under utilities a goal for this year for the board to discuss fluoride in the water.
Good.
And so that's a very broad thing. Yeah, and I'm not saying really much more because I don't think we really need to get any more into it, except whether the rest of the board wants to have it as a goal.
Could you just say where Brattleboro stands now?
Currently, there's no fluoride in the water in
Fluoride.
Brattleboro. And no, I'm not even getting into a history of it.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So
Consider.
Brattleboro, for the select board to consider fluoride in the water and what that process for that to even be something that would be considered would look like.
Great.
Okay.
Absolutely. I support that conversation fully.
Okay. Any other utilities? Great. Okay, moving on.
We don't have to do anything vis-a-vis the new bridge. We're pretty set with that, right?
Oh,
I
that's
mean, there's
interesting.
nothing that we have neglected to do. with
On the new bridge?
Within utilities?
The new bridge.
Yeah, it just made me think of the preparations for the new bridge on our side of the river, and we've pretty much handled everything we've had to for that, right? I'm talking about, the land acquisitions, we've already done that.
Yep, the land acquisitions, we've got a plan for redoing the water line going down 142 and to redo the water line going under the railroad track over to the other side.
Yep.
Yeah.
So working on the traffic plan right now.
I can attest to the pile driving.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that. in the morning.
You want to have those foundations nice and securely.
Thanks. I just want it because it's top of mind for a lot of people and we hear it constantly. So
Yeah,
just want to make sure we were on top of everything. and
Yeah.
We don't need to have that as a goal because it's coming. Right?
yeah.
As is the new train station and the parking lot and the everything else.
And so they're not really appropriate to have as goals. They're more just
No.
things that we'll see actualized.
Yeah.
Goal, cut ribbon on bridge.
All right, so
Hold the ribbon while New
Utilities.
Hampshire cuts ribbon.
Ask New Hampshire if we can borrow their scissors momentarily.
Jess,
So curious about if this might be of interest to you guys, but I know a lot of communities are monitoring wastewater for COVID transmission levels. Just because testing and formalized reporting of those test results have gone down quite significantly. Wondering if that's something we want to consider.
Already.
I thought there was,
Yeah.
Dan told us about some.
We already do it.
Why don't we inquire?
Okay.
That's just a one question.
okay, not really a goal,
I
but
think that would go into what you'd already established, open to varying stages of COVID as it evolves, response as needed. That would help us,
Okay.
that would be under that goal, because we would be doing that as an evaluation for us to be able to respond.
That makes
Like,
sense.
if the opportunity arose for us to be part of the wastewater testing program, we would like to at the very least consider it. Right?
yeah. Anything else on the Hinsdale Bridge project?
I'm sorry.
Discussion on the island, like discussion about like what that whole area is going to look like. Would a goal,
I think
direction goal be helpful at all?
I think that might be part of the open space planning,
Uh-huh.
right? Because that's a broader conversation about open space. Because that's what that would be. It wouldn't be really as part of the bridge project, but it's more of an open space issue. rather
Okay.
than a
Yeah, I
project.
think Patrick's been attending meetings separate from the bridge about
Right, correct. But it's from the
those
bridge. though.
design charrette
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, that is all but wrapped up. We're putting the finishing touches on what will be the sort of final report. We'll probably have one more meeting to sort of look at the final report and go, yeah, that's the final report, isn't it? Yep. And then the plan being to send the final report to the state of New Hampshire, state of Vermont, town of Hinsdale, town of Brattleboro, and say, if you'd like anything further from us, please let us know. I can give you just a sort of.
I think what we'll do is we could do a full update, because I think, right, I think, yeah, Patrick's that way. Patrick would be more prepared. I know you can do it now, but I think that goes off the conversation of what we're trying to do the goals here. So, but I think doing a full update of where we are and how we want to proceed in that, I think might be a good thing.
And I think the public would really
Appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. I know that Patrick's not, I think you guys are almost done and finalizing it. So, and then we're going to be having other conversations moving on regarding that area and how we might think about planning for the future.
Yep.
But I think that's a separate conversation than, the goal setting.
Cool.
But thank you for that offer. It just will get bogged down.
Yeah. Okay, so then moving on to a new category, traffic and pedestrian safety.
Okay, I have a couple of suggestions.
I'm gonna look to the rest of the board first, Liz.
All right.
Anybody else have first suggestions?
Only things that are already top of mind because staff is already working on them.
Okay.
So
What,
I don't think we should, if we know that, if we have confidence in staff. I keep thinking about the Vermont Country Deli debacle over there. So,
Mhm.
but
Do you see that as being?
No.
No,
because it's something we're going to be dealing with.
Yeah.
anyway. It's,
And you don't think that
We
we should
don't
try
have
to
enough
capture that
information.
in a goal?
that's not how I like to use these goals,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
too targeted.
yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
yeah, heard. Liz?
Me?
Yeah. Oh, well, Dan.
You know what? I mean,
Overall
if we're in this kind of goal setting mode, right? Not like listing all the things that are already happening that 3 months from now we can take credit for. Like a goal setting mode for traffic safety and pedestrian safety would be have nobody die this year from crossing the road.
Excellent.
right?
Yes.
I know that that is tough.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that I could have a chat with the former mayor of New York about his Vision Zero plan. However, you know, like we've had way too many accidents in recent years with pedestrians and cyclists. And I would like a goal of this board's to strive for zero,
Yeah,
you know?
that's
And you
it.
know, that's a nationwide goal and that's certainly appropriate.
Liz?
Just some things from the sustainability list that I'd like to move over.
Yep.
Which would be local trail and system and increased public access. The bridge across the 91 bridge, the pedestrian access there. Seize opportunities to promote multimodal transportation. And improve and expand local bus service.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think those are great, especially those last two.
I'd like to add one that's maybe a goal for this year for the board to have some options to address road quality. Something that's, you know, I know we're not gonna, we're not gonna replace all the roads in town. You know, I know I'm aware of that financial limitation we have, but one of the things that I hear a lot of complaints from constituents about the quality of the roads, and it's unfortunate when a lot of times you need to be patient as you know we're addressing these things, and I wonder if one goal could be this year for us to look at if there's any ways that we could improve the patching, or when there's an issue that a resident brings up about roads. I don't really know how to put it into a goal, but it is something that I just hear a lot, and I would feel kind of remiss if I didn't even sort of address it right now when we're talking about traffic safety.
Replacement schedule.
Maybe, you know, but that gets too specific again.
Well, no, to look at it, you know, to make sure our priorities as a board is lining up with priorities on the ground, which may have been set 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know, just a suggestion.
Yeah. Dan.
Like learn more about our road system and how to prolong its lifespan and understand level of investment required to keep it in better shape. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we've heard the story about roads many times.
I'm sure Yoshi can wordsmith this into something that.
Yes.
Yeah, we're given a lot
Is
of
there-
just gobbledygook.
So is there something here about people having an easy venue to feel heard?
Well, that sounds like probably public outreach should be the next agenda.
Oh, okay,
There we
okay.
are.
Are we ready to transition?
Potentially, yeah.
I feel like we've been talking about sidewalks and a sidewalk plan for a long time. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know, if we put it on the select board meeting and tell the public they're welcome to come and address it, maybe someone will come. Couple of
That's
some.
sort of like
That was a different topic. than
replacement schedule
public
of
outreach.
sidewalks, et
Yeah.
cetera, and how much that costs us. We
that sort of
tend to, in
exists.
my 5 years, we dip into that each and every budget season.
Mm.
But I thought maybe what, was it Daniel? Sorry. Was suggesting that was something more like examine the priorities within that plan to see if it still lines up with the wishes of the board. It's a little, it's slightly more going back into the history a little more and making sure that we can.
And maybe it does.
Lovely.
Maybe it does.
Yeah.
But taking a look at it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because
Maybe in advance of budget season,
Mhm.
right? So,
Mhm.
I mean,
Independent of budget season.
right.
Hmm.
a quick education session for the board, not only the board, but the public, and invite public input, and then move forward as usual with, you could ask them on Facebook.
Oh, I knew that was gonna come up at some point.
Yeah.
Guys like roads, that would be my question.
But yeah, I mean, we're not talking about a big commitment here to just educate ourselves and the public simultaneously about what does everybody think? Are we on the right track?
Are we on the right path?
Well, road.
Yes, we're building.
All right, we've beaten that one to death.
Okay.
So let's move on to public outreach.
Great, website.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Let's
how's
do
that
it.
website?
new website.
It's happening.
Should
Yeah.
be inclusive,
here.
informative, and user-friendly.
Sure. I'm sure.
The
Yes.
goal says,
So we're keeping these two goals.
and increase the amount of quality.
What about increase the quality of community engagement? I would much rather have high quality community engagement than lots of less good quality. No, whatever. It's fine. We'll have both. It's fine. Get it out.
Both
I like where you're going, Daniel.
I know you do.
strategies and actions that address both.
Mhm. Jess's point made earlier about venue or way for public to express concerns. Do you think that that's captured under one of these goals or should be its own? Because I would echo that. Like, I think having a way that as a resident you could like a number or
Right.
is that something that is it captured here, or is it something that we could frame into another?
I think it could be part of the website one. You know, we already have a safety action request form on the website, which generates a lot of the stuff that Traffic Safety Committee considers. So improving ways for the public to kind of interact with the website to let us know, about our services.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then another one, and again, maybe this is under it, but for me, I want to see in this next year that the town of Brattleboro have a vibrant, engaging social media presence. Now, is that just an element of the town website creation potentially? And it could just be captured under that, but
Yes.
that's something I would like to see as a part of it.
Can that be implemented right after I leave?
I think you should run it. I think we could hire you to run our social.
I'm happy you brought that up, and I do have some thoughts about that once we get to that granular stage of discussing how the town should participate in social media,
Yeah. So, yeah,
because there are huge pitfalls.
huge pitfalls, fair. So maybe that's too granular even. I kind of fall,
I mean,
I'm
but
not sure.
I'm just saying it's not a discussion for tonight, but we should.
Maybe it comes under the increase the amount and quality of community engagement.
I'm
One way
sure-
to increase
I'm
the
sure-
quality.
i.e. potentially social
I
media.
do
Yeah.
think that, I think that could be improve social media for it is a broad term at this point, where social media is
So many.
things at this point. It's not just one item. So I think that can be a goal, if that's something you wanted to do. Because I think that the town doesn't have a very robust social media presence. And do you want one? And I think that's a goal. right?
That, yeah,
And that's what
to
we're
give-
discussing here. Do you want that as a goal? Because I think that is a goal.
so I'm saying, and so maybe we have to get into it now. I'm not sure.
I think this case is where, it directs the town, like where do we pursue putting resources?
Perhaps the goal should be consider the town's social media presence.
I think
think-
it's too, why would we not want to commit to a way that so many people access
Oh, sure.
information?
But the
Because,
shape of what that
because
takes.
this is
of
the
course.
way the public addresses the town. And if you have alternative means that someone has to respond. Who's
Well,
gonna do that?
that's
Because someone
all-
has to listen, right?
But that's
Yeah.
all an element of implementation of the goal. So those are all granular things that would get in discussion. Also, how the town actually
Yeah, but you just
exists in
said-
social media, all part of the discussion. But the goal of us having a social media presence that's more substantive than what it is now is the goal that I want to put into this. And all of the rest of that discussion can be hammered out. But it's the question of whether we want to put that in as a goal or not. And I agree, and I really echo Yoshi. We have to sort of give that if we are going to pour resources into that or not, it needs to be decided.
Yeah, it's not, I guess it's not resources, but how it allows us to provide a solution or options for the consideration. So it's similar because like website is different.
It is different.
Can't the goal be just to have the discussion on where we should land?
Sure. I think we should, because it's very clear that there's at least two people that are not so sure and two that feel, I mean, maybe even one that only
It
is
just hasn't been
excited about it.
defined, so we don't know.
We
if
don't
we're-
have three people that are excited about,
Okay, I'll come up with language that can be sort of said.
have a discussion about the town's social media.
It's
In a
so
warm
weird
setting,
that
so
the
people
person
know that
who's
that's
so
what we're talking about.
excited about it is not on social media.
Yeah, but it's
Maybe his goal
but
is
it's-
to not be on social media.
No, but it's because I see it as a very important way that people engage in this community. It's a very important way that people engage in this community, and the town is entirely absent from it, or almost entirely absent from it. So it's,
Yeah, but I think you're going into.
I'm getting into, you're right.
Yeah, let's have a discussion about it at a properly warm
Yes.
meeting, so
Yeah.
people know that that's what we're talking about.
Agreed.
Various departments have. Facebook pages.
Agreed. Yes. Okay. So anyhow, okay. So it's more couched, and I appreciate that. So moving on, unless there's anything else on public outreach. Nope. Okay. Cannabis. I'm gonna kind of give the floor to Tim here.
Well, I'm not really prepared to talk at length about cannabis.
No, but you can provide us.
I just want to say that our next meeting is 4/19, so close,
Ah.
so close, because we could have scheduled. Yeah. Yeah, well, cannabis is coming. We have a snicker in the audience. We need to form, we need to decide on the formation of cannabis control board.
Okay.
We need to have somewhat at length conversation with Sue, and I can coordinate with the folks at CCB to get the latest, because it's still changing up there. The situation with the advisory committee is that it kind of dropped way off, like off a cliff, the involvement that the CCB has asked for the advisory committee to be involved in the current processes, because they're now deep into the weeds of like letting everybody know how to apply. And then you might have seen on the news that the applications are being accepted. There's social equity applications, there's other applications. I think it's a free-for-all right now, and it's a little bumpy, but they're figuring it out. So I think within the coming weeks, we should have an initial discussion, and then definitely an initial discussion on the local cannabis control board, what that is going to look like, because that's something we
He's
should
gonna look a lot like us.
Okay.
quite possibly. Makes a lot of sense.
So are you saying the three goals you'd like to continue to have those three?
Yes, I would.
Yeah. Is there
Yeah.
any modification that we want to make to it?
The top lines of it kind of all make sense, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, just the goals themselves, not necessarily the.
Yeah. The details.
Don't have to
you
drop
go
my
into the
name
details,
in
yeah.
there anymore.
Okay. So nothing else on cannabis. I guess I'd then open it up to sort of like the catch-all. Is there anything else that board members had in their minds that they want to incorporate into goals? Jess.
I had one, but maybe it should have been under public outreach. It was just letting folks know about the resources that the town has to support them, like this fund that we just did a loan to the 47 Flat Street project. I don't think a lot of people know that these resources and the apartments and homes program know that they exist.
Well, that's interesting, because Ian and I are on the, well, we all could be on the tax abatement. What do you call that?
The Board of Civil Authorities.
Mhm.
And often it comes up that people are not aware of programs, homestead
tax.
rebate
Yeah.
tax
Right.
primarily. And that would be such a benefit to them. And it doesn't, and so the town clerk has started to write letters saying these are options that are available. But that's only when it gets to the point of going to the tax abatement board. So in general, and I would probably put this under the website to make the public aware of benefit programs that they can avail themselves of.
Or maybe social media.
Right. But it's, I mean, this sort of goes back to the improve amount and quality of community engagement, right? Like
Right.
one of the ways that we would improve it is by making better known the things that the town can offer the community, whether they be recreation programming or a loan to, do whatever, and that requires a person to take ownership of that. And there's not really been that person.
Yeah.
But there will be.
But there will be, to some extent, right?
Different departments do.
Yes, I know they do, and it's
Yeah.
done differently in different departments, and some do more and some do less, and it's inconsistent.
So maybe incorporating that into the public outreach, specifically programs and funds. Yeah, I think that makes sense. If there isn't anyone else, anything else? Yeah, Jess?
Of course, I have another one.
Yeah.
And this is sort of maybe an economic development sort of leaning piece, but I don't think it belongs in any of the other headers.
Okay.
But I would love to see what the select board might be able to do as far as these business support programs or policy that might support the creation of childcare businesses and the retention of childcare businesses in Brattleboro.
It's interesting, because that's such a focus of state funding and state initiatives. And so it would probably be best to inquire on our legislative team how we can support those efforts.
I would love that, even at that level, to be on our list.
Yoshi, do you see that? Yeah.
Well, I was thinking more, it could be part of the ARPA discussion. Because that's where it imagines that's where the funding would come, unless you're saying that you're also looking at how the town could create funding sources for this. Are you, I guess I'm trying to get clarification. Are you saying that we should look at expanding the funds that are revolving loan funds to target these type? And I guess that becomes granular, right? It's then what the more the goal would be is to evaluate the revolving loan fund.
Right, but
and
instead
its
of that, I'm
purposes.
saying, how can we support childcare
Yeah, because-
businesses
Well, so
specifically?
I'm saying with that's
That's
how,
like the goal.
right, well, the goal, or how to support. Okay, I'm just trying to get that clarification as to how I should write it out.
Yeah.
Although Yoshi, I'm taking a slightly different tack because there may be federal and state funds
Yes.
for this purpose that we don't have to contribute to, but we can help facilitate.
Correct,
Mhm.
okay.
Maybe we could just kind of pull back a little bit, and instead of being so focused on one particular kind of economic development, which was childcare, we could evaluate our revolving loan fund vis-a-vis, spurring further economic development, and also, what you said about states.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting
You know.
because, we're required because of the federal money to limit it to housing and economic development. But I
Right.
think we very narrowly define economic development and we could revisit that.
It's under more CDBG, so it has even more expansion on what you can use CDBG money for, and I think health, that is one of the uses.
You could remind us what that is.
So I think we'll have to go back, because I think that it doesn't exclude it now, depending on which money that we put in. We have to look into that, right? Is it on what kind of businesses are eligible to inquire about the revolving loan fund? I don't think childcare businesses are excluded from doing so.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be excluded.
Yeah, I don't think they are, so,
You
but that's something we can, right?
yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
ask
they
the
would-
guy
we'll
who
look at
actually uses childcare.
I mean, I want to just support what Jess is trying to do here. It's literally an issue, my main issue, why I want to run for Senate. The the issue of supporting early childhood services, education and childcare is a big problem in Vermont because it's supposed to fall under the Department of Education and school boards, and yet under 5-year-olds don't get supported. The infrastructure doesn't get supported. They're afterthought-ish in that whole pot of money. So that's something, but unfortunately, I think we could devote some resources to it but the amount of resources it needs state action. And that's one of the reasons I'm trying to focus on state action. But that it doesn't mean we shouldn't look at it to try to understand the landscape.
So maybe as a goal can be developing, we can try to wordsmith like language, like how to develop policies and, processes that to help encourage your funding of new early childcare opportunity. I don't know, something like
Yeah,
that, right?
it's
It's
just-
similar to what you're saying for housing, right? Getting more housing opportunities. We're saying the same thing. We're creating more resources or providing more resources for childcare.
With me, it's more that absolutely, I think that's a good way to go. But I think it's also like, where does the energy get more efficiently applied? Like if the town starts to take up some of that slack, does it politically take our state leaders off of the hook where they should be stepping up to the plate to support these institutions?
Although I think that they are.
Well, I've seen
All right.
during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
I think we're now getting back into the weeds. So I think that Jess, it's a great goal.
Yeah.
I think I fully support putting it on there.
I'll figure out where we'll fit it in.
Maybe even planning.
That's what I was putting as planning and housing. So.
Planning, look at that. I have one outside, and I know we've taken a lot longer on this than I was hoping we would. So I'll be very brief. I just think that we should incorporate refugees and the board should have a goal as simple as making sure that the municipal government is accessible for our new residents who are coming from potentially other places, but refugee communities.
So it's going to be integrate refugees into Brattleboro community.
I think, yeah, and just that, yeah, and that they have access to all of the resources that everyone else does. So making sure that it's accessible.
Great.
Yep. Anything else? Okay, well, I just want to say it's just a real pleasure getting to work on all of this with y'all. And we'll look for a second discussion on this in 2 weeks. Okay, let me find myself. So moving on to select board rules for conduct of meetings and hearings. So this is the time where the board looks at how we run our meetings and how we run our public hearings, and also how we put things on the agenda. It's in the 3 years I've been on the board now, we haven't really modified it very much, but this is an opportunity for each of the board members to bring up anything that they feel like they want to change, or draw attention to anything that they think maybe the public ought to know. So with that, I open it up to discussion.
Don't make me do this.
Daniel.
A couple of things.
Yep.
So the first page, section A, number 8. Regular meetings of the select board should be held at 6:15
Oh, I have
PM on the
this too.
first and third Tuesday of the month. Yes, that happens. Here we are. And at 8:30 AM on the second Monday of the month. That does not happen.
Thank God.
This is
All right.
Strike that.
page 1, section A, subsection 8.
Oh, thank you.
Can we strike that language that's wrong?
Yes.
Just because like in the event that somebody ever looked at these
Yep.
and thought that's when we met, they'd be sorely disappointed.
The
Yeah.
board may amend the schedule by majority vote.
Yeah,
And I think so,
yeah, I guess so.
when I read that, having it like that in the previous years, basically, we were just informally amending it by a majority vote when we agreed to the agenda.
Uh-huh.
But I think modifying it out, how it's actually written in our rules
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So we cool with that? Great.
Section F, number 1,
Page
page 4.
Section F, procedures for appointing citizens to town boards. Oh, boy. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Pursuant to the Brattleboro Town Charter, when a vacancy occurs on a town board, the select board shall forthwith fill such vacancy by appointment. And then there's a whole bit about like school board stuff, and I'm confused as to whether that still should be there.
Yeah.
So
no.
if somebody could educate me.
Where's school board?
I can find out from Bob.
Okay. We'll get
Where
clear.
is school board?
It's in,
The second.
In the case of,
paragraph.
in the case of a vacancy on the school board,
Oh.
the select board shall fill vacant, I mean, they're just.
I'm sure that they're, when they did the,
Yeah.
it's like, I'll find out.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we did that? That'd be so
I
funny.
know, they would be furious. And then I had one other thing.
Yes.
This is really a clarification. So section G, part 2A, it's about consideration of items. A says by written request of the select board member by 5 PM the Wednesday prior to a scheduled meeting. Does that mean that our agenda setting meeting has to happen after 5 PM on a Wednesday? Because I did
No.
not the other week.
it does,
No.
it does not mean that.
Okay.
Because if a select board member were to make a request by 5 PM of the Wednesday and we'd already held the agenda setting meeting, we would simply hold another agenda setting meeting.
Got it.
Nothing within the rules keeps us from having more than one if we
Great.
need to address this additional thing.
Very good.
If, with that in mind, would you want to modify that time? Okay,
That's fine.
um,
That is all.
okay,
From me.
thank you, Daniel. Anybody else?
No.
Good with how the rules go? I know you guys have all thoroughly read these. And you're
We know them.
got them
forwards and
committed to
backwards.
memory.
4:59 PM on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Okay, so,
I'll make a motion.
yeah, do we have?
Ooh, aren't we striking something though? It's doing.
How about
As modified.
as modified by Daniel?
Well, do we know about, I mean, it's pretty a no-brainer. We can't appoint anybody to the school board,
Oh, okay.
right? Because
We'll
we're
strike
striking
it, and
that.
if we can't strike it, we'll deal with that at
Okay.
another meeting, right?
Yeah.
All right. I move to approve the rules for conduct of meetings and hearings for 2022, 2023 as modified by Vice Chair Quick.
Liz has made a motion to approve the rules for conduct of meetings and hearings for the years 2022 and 2023 as modified by the Vice Chair Quip. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Okay, so moving on to the warrants. A very exciting one. So every year, the Brattleboro Selectboard assigns a section of each year for each of the board members to review and sign the warrants that are prepared by town staff. And usually, I don't actually remember how we usually do
Hey, what are
this.
warrants?
Oh, boy.
Checks.
Yeah.
Checks, yeah, expenditure, right? It's just anything that we are spending money on from, is it weekly? Yes, Yes.
It's weekly, and then there's payroll as well.
payroll, yeah. So,
I'm currently doing it, and for some reason, I thought that the chair was exempt, but I was disabused.
No.
No, they're 5 empty spots right here.
For the 6th year in a row, I'm gonna request a certain one. No
All
one
right.
usually
I-
objects, but
Tim is requesting a certain one. Anyone have any objections to that? No, Tim, which one would you
the
want?
6th consecutive year, I'm gonna request November 28th to January 25th.
Right.
Great,
I would like
During a
to
period of
do-
my availability being the most likely.
cool.
I would like to do the first one again.
Okay. Jess,
I'll do August 22nd to November 25th.
excellent. And that, Liz, are
I don't
you,
care.
cool, can you take June?
Sure.
Great. I will take January to March.
Boom.
Is there a motion for that?
Nope.
Excellent. All right. Next item. Annual select board appointments. So every year, the board appoints members of the select board to be on individual committees. And there's I'm sure the board has reviewed the separate committees. I'm not sure if we, yeah, so in that case, if you want to, does anyone have any desires? Daniel?
I just want to let folks know that it is my intention to step down from the Traffic Safety Committee. And I actually announced it to the Traffic Safety Committee at our last meeting, so it'd be very embarrassing if I had to backtrack on that. It happens right before a work meeting I have at 9 a.m. on a Thursday that I facilitate. And it means that sometimes I have to leave the Traffic Safety Committee meeting while it's still happening, which is not the best way to serve the public.
Well, Daniel, how many years have you been on that now?
2.
So I just want to thank you very much for the time you spent. It's a really important committee and it actually has time commitment beyond the board where some of these committees don't necessarily. So thank you very much.
I was on it before, Dave.
That's right, you did 2 years as well.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. It's very important.
Sorry.
And it's a really important committee. And I
It
would
is really
encourage my fellow board members who are not Tim or me to really seriously consider whether they want to be on it. And I know that if the time that the committee meets is the impediment, that is not totally inflexible.
Yeah.
Right?
Let
Maybe.
me just say this, that I could go against all my standards of really trying to join a committee that never meets.
They
There's
definitely
no one else who wants to.
Don't
I'm not
point at
hearing it.
me.
All right, well, Liz, yeah, there you go. Welcome to Traffic Safety Committee.
If someone wants to make
Oh.
sure,
Which committee were you on currently?
gosh, I was on the Small Business Assistance Program Loan Committee.
Okay.
Okay,
Which-
do you want to just go, would you just go down through them then? I'm not hearing anybody else jump in for particular things.
I'm happy to be on as many of these meets as needed committees as is useful to the board.
Yeah.
There are
So
two that
you
I'm
could
just
take
really
them all then.
interested
Oh,
in.
no, yeah, Jess, please.
The Rental Housing Improvement Program Loan Committee and the
Yep.
Small Business Assistance Program Loan Committee.
Both?
Jess.
Both.
Are you okay with that, Tim? Did you want one of those?
Yes, well, I mean, I'll be assigned where I'm needed, but no, I'm not.
Well, Tim, welcome to Hazard Mitigation Committee.
Okay.
Oh, so cool.
Wait a
I
minute.
was on that, which was actually very, very interesting.
Okay. How often did you meet?
As needed, so it sort of depends. We are doing the hazard mitigation plan.
And that's all
Just
done.
done.
That's all done.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I'm
yeah,
on.
you're in.
I'm sorry, I am a little busy, but
I'd love to review some capital grants in the event of us.
Capital grants, Daniel. We got a second on that. Do you want to do chair, vice chair on that?
Sure.
Great. I'll be number 2.
Yeah.
I'm currently the alternate on the Deerfield Valley Communications Union District Governing Board, and I'm happy to continue doing that.
I think you should.
You
I think it's
should.
appropriate for the
Yes.
chair.
Excellent.
Hmm.
And then the Wyndham Regional Commission.
Maybe former planning commission member down that end.
There is, I have heard interest in the community for a citizen member, so I think we could leave that vacant because I know that Sue has had some interest from the community.
oh, okay.
Oh, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Unless the rest of the board really feels differently.
Is
Been
Tom
there, done there.
Mozakowski gonna serve again?
No,
No.
he was. in the
No,
meeting
at
the other
town
week,
meeting
so-
or some other time, he said he was going to
Yes.
open
I
to
remember.
community members, and I know members of the community have shown interest.
Great, thank you for that. So we'll leave that one blank and appoint a citizen member at some point.
To be named later.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we are done with that. So we will move on to the Brattleboro Transportation Center. And Yoshi, I think you've
Yeah,
got
I think,
that
yeah,
one.
well, I'll ask Patrick to step in if he wants to, but the select board is being asked to allow for the town manager's office to engage with Lost Nation L3C Films for a 1-month lease of the former Dottie space at 77 Flat Street, and to authorize us, the town manager's office, to negotiate and execute similar short-term leases of 12 months or less at the Brattleboro Transportation Center for the remainder of fiscal year 2022 and for fiscal year 2023. Reason for short-term leases is that we're not looking for a long-term lease, is because the space is in need of repair, and getting a long-term tenant would not be advisable at this time, as we do a full evaluation of the transportation center in hopes of ultimately providing to the select board a fix it. What we are looking at is both spaces there, and again, this would be asking you to give me the authority and our office's authority to be able to negotiate those short-term leases.
Great, thank you very much, Yoshi. Discussion?
If anyone is wondering, that's Jay Craven's project. He is shooting a film with a lot of student help here in Brattleboro.
Cool.
Yeah,
It's great.
that's why it's a temporary.
Great.
Yep.
I think it's nice to be able to get a little bit of income while that space is empty and not super attractive.
And this would also include the Experience Good Space once they vacated their space as well, which is in there. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Yoshi, for making that happen.
Yeah, and better to have somebody there than it just to be vacant. So even even with
Short-term
very, yeah.
It's great resource for the creative economy to
Yeah.
fill in there.
Okay, so I guess I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion to ratify, hold on, the town manager's decision to engage Lost Nation L3C Films for a 1-month lease of the former Dottie space at 77 Flat Street, and to authorize the town manager, not major, to negotiate and execute a similar short-term lease of 12 months or less at the Brattleboro Transportation Center for the remainder of FY 22 and 23.
Right, Tim has made a motion to ratify the town manager's decision to engage Lost Nation L3C Films for a 1-month lease of the former Dottie space at 77 Flat Street, and to authorize the town manager to negotiate and execute similar short-term leases of 12 months or less at the Brattleboro Transportation Center for the remainder of FY 22 and FY 23. All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, potential recycling transportation fee increase. This one I pass it over to Patrick.
Thank you, sir. So what we're asking the board here to do this evening is to authorize us to increase the rate that we pay per ton for recycling transport by $10 per ton for the remainder of the contract that we have with Triple T Trucking. So the town has worked with Triple T Trucking since about 2008. And I was recently contacted by their general manager, who was explaining a situation to me where, frankly, they're losing money on something. And they asked for us to consider raising our rates. As a board will recall, up until maybe about 4 years ago, the recycling, which is collected curbside, would get taken to Wyndham Solid Waste Management to go to their materials recovery facility. That facility was closed, and Brattleboro's curbside recycling continues to be collected curbside by Triple T, but is curbside and consolidated in Brattleboro by Triple T. And then Triple T hires a trucking company to take it up to Rutland, which is the nearest materials recovery facility, and that's run by Casella. The average truckload carries about 13 tons of recycling, and we send a truckload a day to, well, not every day, 5 days a week, to the Casella facility. We pay $35 a ton for that transport. That costs about $455 for each truck of recycling that heads to Rutland. Triple T has been turning around and engaging a third party to haul that to Rutland, and they've been paying about $380 for that. And what they've learned from their vendor is that vendor is now going to add another $100 onto that expense. So in effect, Triple T will be getting $455 from us to transport something that's going to cost them $480 to transport. So they're losing a little money on this, and they asked us to consider whether or not we'd be willing to increase the rate a little bit to help offset the expenses. I think we all recognize there's a certain amount of increase in pricing and inflation. And I agreed to take this request to the board with the following in mind. That Triple T is not just an entity with which we have a contract. We do have a contract. They're contracted service with the town, but they've been our partner in the evolution of our solid waste stream for years and years and years. And so when the town of Brattleboro asked, you know, could we start a pilot program to collect organic materials curbside? Triple T said, sure. They didn't ask to charge us anything new for it. They just said, yes, we'll do that. And when we wanted to expand that program, we wanted to expand it out townwide. They said, sure, how can we help? When we transitioned to pay as you throw, they said, sure, how can we help? When we transitioned to every other week trash collection, which had a real impact on their business, they said, sure, how can we help? I haven't seen in my time here them asking for anything really at all. And they've asked for us to increase the rate that we pay per ton for transport to Casella by $10. And so I'm passing that request to the board.
Great, thank you very much, Patrick. Tim.
Patrick, forgive me if you said this, but what's the length and when does the contract?
It concludes at fiscal 24.
Fiscal 24. So is that, I'm sorry, it's getting late. That's a year from now, or it's a little more
We're in
over
fiscal 22.
Oh,
So 2 years.
Okay. Of course. Yeah, I mean, I feel like even though a contract is a contract and we have fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers, it seems like a reasonable request given our relationship. The only thing, because initially when I read this, I thought, oh, maybe we should split the difference or something, but that doesn't feel very fair to me at this point. But I did want to ask if the board, if I'm just assuming some other people are in favor of leaning towards granting the request, if we should consider just doing it for a year in case those numbers change, then we could return to the original contract. Because
You know, that's as likely as hen's teeth.
yes. Well, actually, recycling and all of that stuff is a little hard to predict. So I don't know. You're saying because it's hauling and it involves gasoline. And, yeah. Okay. Well, that was my little nod to fiscal responsibility, is to perhaps just have it be something that we have to reauthorize in a year's time, which would take not but a moment.
Well, would it come back up in the budget process? I mean, we wouldn't really get into it.
I think we're talking about doing an addendum to the current contract, right? Or,
Yeah,
so it wouldn't.
I mean,
It's not a large amount of money.
It's not a particularly large amount of money. It's you know, an estimated $11,000. So annually, so.
Out of a $20,000.
I was gonna
municipal
s-
budget.
20
Well,
million.
Could you, that's what I was gonna ask. Can we put that 11,000 in perspective as far as the solid waste section of the budget?
Solid waste section of the budget's about 850,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
yeah, there you go.
Okay,
All right,
I'm in favor.
favor of the full two, for the
$10 per
remainder
ton.
of the contract, not
Remainder
just
of
the 1 year.
contract.
I also am.
So then I can address it then.
And just to be clear, so it would result in that much of an overrun in that particular budget.
It certainly could. Recycling is one of those things that's a little bit of an estimate because, you know, how many cans and how many bottles are we going to have? We've got a general sense as to how much we do in a year, and that's how we based this number on. But, you know, it's subject to a little bit of fluctuation based on people's, you know.
Well, it sounds like the board is not viewing my friendly amendment as very friendly.
Yeah, I
So,
think, yeah,
Not a hill I'd like to die on.
okay, I appreciate that, Tim. Yeah, I
I'll make
think,
a motion.
thank you. Yes.
Somebody wants to. Oh,
Yeah.
I move to authorize an increase of $10 per ton for the recycling transport for TTT trucking or triple T trucking for the remainder of the existing contract.
Liz has made a motion to authorize an increase of $10 per ton for the recycling and transport for triple T trucking for the remainder of the existing contract. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. I will entertain one more motion.
I move that we adjourn.
Jess has moved to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you very much, to the interpreters. Thank you, BCTV.
People of Brattleboro.
People of Brattleboro.
Well
Have a
done.
great night.
Well done.